I'm going to try my best today to get people to have a totally different understanding of what a sales funnel is. Because whenever I see something advertised on the internet saying, you know, we can teach you sales funnels, we can implement a sales funnel, how to put the best sales funnel in the world in place, I just think bullshit. Again, for those that have never come to see me talk before, unfortunately, I swear a little bit as well, so apologies for that to start with. But you can't implement a sales funnel in one hit. It's more complicated than that. So I want to try and give you guys enough of an understanding that by the end of the day, you could talk to somebody else about how a sales funnel actually works, and they would go, holy shit, this guy knows what he's talking about. Okay, so let's get it going. Otherwise, I'm going to waste my whole 2 hours. The first thing I want to do is there's a lot of people in the meeting that are life cycle users, and there's a lot of people in the meeting that are not life cycle users. So I need to make sure that there's value for everybody in this meeting. Those that are not life cycle users, I don't want you to feel like, oh God, you know, talk about life cycle again, we don't even use that. I need to cover certain points for the people that are life cycle users in the room. And those that aren't life cycle users, again, when I'm talking about something that doesn't involve life cycle, don't think, oh, why are we not talking about life cycle? I need to make sure that there's value here for everybody. So the first thing I want to do is just give everybody a bit of a background on myself. Some of you I've met many times before, some of you have never spoken to me. So I'll just give you a bit of background as to what qualifies me to talk to you about this subject anyway. My background is that I have around 20 years experience building up various different companies. I've always had a connection in some way or another to a estate agency. So I was an estate agent when I first left school. Well, actually, I had a few other dead-end jobs to start with. Worked in an ice cream shop, worked in a tour operators. But eventually I stumbled into a estate agency and loved it. Thought it was a brilliant job. Enjoyed every part of it. Did that for a few years and then decided that the pay wasn't good enough and went off on a different journey, got into technology. And for the last 20 years, I've been an entrepreneur, building different businesses, always in some way or another connected with the estate agency. So I've got a really good understanding of that sector, loads of friends in that sector, understand the ins and outs, the terminologies and everything. And I've got a really good understanding of technology because of the businesses that I've built around it. In 2016, I wrote a book called Where Did My Industry Go? That was all about the transformation of the way marketing and business works, how it's so different now from when I started in a estate agency in the 90s to how businesses like Apple and Facebook and Google and Amazon do their marketing. And we'll touch on some of that today. The book went really well for me. The book became #2 business book in the world, was a bestseller. And obviously because of that, my kind of credentials, if you like, increased to the point where I now get to talk at lots of events nationally and internationally about the subject. So hopefully I can bring some of that knowledge to you guys today. So just a quick run through. Hopefully you guys will have been able to print out the workbook that we sent to you, or at the very least, at the very least, have it on a tablet or something to the side. It's not the end of the world if you haven't. If you're sitting there now thinking, shit, I never printed the workbook, or I didn't even get it, don't worry too much. I'll go through all of the screens anyway. Just make sure you've got a pad and a pen or something like that where you can make some notes. And again, like I say, I'm going to have this recording afterwards so we can send it to you. And if anybody needs the workbook afterwards, just let us know and we can send you over a copy. You can actually download it off of our website. So don't panic if you haven't got it. So the sections that we're going to go through, the purpose, the funnels, all of that sort of stuff is all laid out at the start of the workbook. But I'm just going to try and jump straight into it. So the first thing, hold on a minute, I just need to shrink part of my screen so I can actually see everything that's going on here. So let me just shrink that and that. Okay. You guys might want to do the same. I don't know if you've got, if you can see me or everybody else in the meeting, but you might want to minimize that because it might be blocking part of the screen. So the very first thing that I wanted to talk about is the fact that there is no one funnel. This is the biggest problem that people make when they think about sales funnels. There's, for most of you guys, obviously not all of you are lifecycle users, but for most of you guys, there's something called a content funnel. And I'm going to talk you through that in a minute. And then there's the funnel in lifecycle, the lifecycle funnel. And then there's a Facebook ad funnel. And they're not all the same thing. And that's the biggest mistake that people make. That's why whenever you see an advert on the internet or wherever saying, we can show you how to create the greatest funnel in the world, you can immediately strike it off your list as just bollocks, because it's more complicated than that. There is no one funnel that works. The way that you think about funnels will hopefully change over the course of this meeting. It's really just a bit of a gimmicky word, funnels. It doesn't mean a great deal. In the same way that there's many parts to your estate agency. There isn't just one bit. There isn't just sell a house. There's all these bits that need to work and they all connect with each other. So I'm going to try and demystify that and I'll show you each funnel and what each funnel actually means in your head so that you can implement the strategies behind it or at least have a good understanding of it. So let's just move on to the next slide. So the first of those funnels that I want to look at is the content funnel. Most people accept that a funnel is made up of the parts that you can see on your screen at the moment. At the very top of the funnel, you've got the section of awareness. Underneath that, you've got interest, then consideration, then intent, then evaluation, then eventually they purchase something off of you. Before we get into how you start building out that funnel, what I want to do is just quickly go through how marketing in the 2020s actually works. I know some of you know this stuff, but it'd be good to recap over it. And for those of you that's never heard of it, it's really important because otherwise you can't really get your head around why a funnel is so critically important in today's world. Okay, so this is a little bit of a fast forward of what happened in what I wrote about in my book. So first of all, I just want to talk about how marketing works at the moment for most people and why it works that way. So from about the 1960s up until 1994, and I only say 1994 because that's when the change began, but actually probably for 90% of businesses, it still works this way. So from the 60s to now, for a lot of businesses, the way that marketing worked was for you to do everything you can in order to try to find the active market, the low-hanging fruit. So let's just give you an example of that. You work in, say, Canterbury. That's your geographical location. In that area, at any point in time, there are certain people that are thinking about using a product or service like yours, i.e. selling or letting their house. So what your marketing is designed to do from the 60s, for a lot of people to today, is to try to find those people and let them know that you have that product or service they need. We are the best estate agent in Canterbury if you're thinking about selling your house. And the way that companies did that was through something called interruption-based marketing. So what they would do is try and find as many ways as possible of interrupting somebody's daily life to let them know that that service exists. And if they could interrupt as many people as possible, then there's a good chance that they'll find those few people that are in the active market, those few people that are looking for that product or service. And hopefully, when the two combine, there's a deal to be done. Now, the problem with that in today's world is that when the internet came along in 1994, it changed the way that the world works. Before the internet, that kind of service was actually quite useful for the end user, I didn't have any other way of knowing that there was an award-winning estate agent around the corner. So when I was thinking about selling my property, it was quite useful that they put a leaflet through my door and let me know about it. Even though 99% of everybody ignored the leaflet, for me, it would have been quite useful if I was thinking about selling my property. Likewise, I didn't have any way of knowing that there was a brand new pizza shop that just opened and they were doing a 2-for-1 offer. So that was quite useful. And all of these things were actually seen as quite useful. I can remember when I used to sit and watch the TV with my parents when I was younger, we would sit and watch the ads as well. You knew all the ads off by heart. So it was all quite interesting. You didn't have the internet. You didn't have any way of doing your own research. And so that kind of marketing was perfect. It worked on the basis that they were trying to find the low-hanging fruit. And for those people that weren't in the active market, it was just a little bit of brand awareness, and that was it. So then a company called Procter & Gamble, which a lot of you will know, a big company, decided that they would try to figure out, how do you define whether your marketing is actually working? Remember, this is pre-internet. This is based on interruption-based marketing. And what they found was that you do your marketing, however you're going to do it. You send out your leaflets, you send out your letters, you run your radio adverts, your TV ads, whatever you're going to do. And then ultimately, there's a first moment of truth, whereby when that person's going to pick a product that you sell or service, they choose you. So the way that they worded it was, when they're standing and looking at the shelf of products, do they pick yours? In estate agency terms, that would be, when they're going to sell their house, do they choose you to sell it? And if they do, then you can say, okay, my marketing worked. And if they didn't, then you can say my marketing isn't working. And that's where this whole idea comes from, that we could do a bit of marketing, see if we get any instructions. If we do, great. If we don't, didn't work. After that comes the second moment of truth. What happens after they've actually contracted with you or bought your product? Are they happy with it? That's the second moment of truth. And that's how all marketing worked from the 1960s. To interrupt people, if they buy your products there and then, you found the active market, your marketing's working. And it's how most estate agents still work today. That's why they send out letters to people saying, we see you're on the market with another agent, we've got a buyer, blah, 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 all of that shit. And they send out leaflets and they do all of that sort of stuff to interrupt the world and try and find the active market, because that's just the way that the world works. However, in about 2015, Google did a big piece of research called the 0 moment of truth. And they looked at how marketing works in today's world. How do companies like Apple do their marketing? How do companies like Google do their marketing? They looked at 20 years of people's browsing data to see the trends. What makes people buy products? They teamed up with universities and studied how the human brain works. And they laid it all out in the 0 moment of truth. How do people actually buy products in today's world? Does it still work the same way? And actually they found there's now a 0 moment of truth that sits just before the first moment of truth, whereby people now do their own research. They stalk products before they buy them. They go online and they put in Google searches and they read content and they get alerted to things on Facebook and they watch YouTube videos and all of that sort of stuff. And there's this 0 moment of truth. And if you can win the 0 moment of truth, you automatically win the first and the second moment of truth straight through. An example of it that I've given to many people before in the past is Apple. They're the best at this. So Apple understand that it's all about winning the 0 moment of truth. And the result of that is that they can make somebody walk into a mobile phone shop like the Carphone Warehouse and be surrounded by a whole range of products and options and offers and phones for as little as £5 and ignore them all, not even look at them, walk up to the counter and say, have you got the new iPhone, without even knowing the price. And if the person behind the counter was to say, yes, but I've got other phones that are better and cheaper, the person would just find that annoying and just say, I don't want another phone, I want an iPhone. So if you can win the 0 moment of truth, price goes out the window to a certain degree and people just want the product. And it's very relevant for estate agency, because estate agency is all about marketing to the active market. And it's all about that. There isn't anything else at the moment for most estate agents. So because of that, when you do marketing to the active market, because you step in at the last moment, the question that it always boils down to, if you only do marketing to the active market, is how much are you going to charge? If you do marketing on the zero moment of truth way, people buy into the product before they even get to the stage where they're ready to buy it. And so it becomes less about how much you're going to charge them and more about them wanting to actually use you. So how do you do it? What is the zero moment of truth? The zero moment of truth flips the whole thing on its head. And it says, actually, there's something called 7-11-4. 7-11-4 is how you move from just being a product that is in amongst a sea of other products, how you move yourself over to the emotional side of somebody's brain, whereby they're now emotionally attached to you in some way or another, and they know, like, and trust your brand. Let me give you an example of that. Think of a car that you'd really like. You really, really would like that car. You don't necessarily know the exact price of it, and you maybe think to yourself that you can't afford it. But if you won the lottery tomorrow, you just go out and buy it. So they've got an emotional place in your brain. You don't care if you went to buy it and somebody said, "Oh, it's not very good on fuel economy," you'd be like, "I don't give a shit." Yeah, you've got an emotional connection to them. Apple do it all the time. As I say, they're a great example of it. The new iPhone comes out, you go, "Oh, I just don't know if it's worth it. I'm not sure," and then you just go and buy it. So the way that they do that is through 7-11-4. What their research on the brain showed is that there's a part of the brain called the hippocampus that blocks out all of the stuff that you get thrown at you every day. All of the ads that you see every day. There's one on your computer right now with a logo. There's vans that drive past with logos on the side. There's a million logos in your fridge. The hippocampus blocks them all out. Unless those products or brands have managed to spend 7 hours with you, have 11 touch points, or met you in 4 different locations. Crazy, right? If that happens, part of the brain opens, the hippocampus opens and moves you over into the emotional, known, like, and trusted side of the brain. It goes all the way back to caveman times, whereby if I see you in 4 different locations, spend 7 hours with you, and have 11 different interactions with you, I feel like you're not going to eat me or kill me, and we can become part of the same tribe. So companies figured this out. They figured out how that emotional connection actually works. And so what they did was they flipped the way marketing works and said, you know what, if we could 7-11-4 people when they're in the dormant market, rather than trying to find people when they hit the active market, if we could 7-11-4 people in the dormant market, then when they hit the active market, they'll immediately go, "Huh, I should be using Fine & Country to sell my house. I've got no idea what they charge," but they're already thinking, I should use Fine & Country. They've been on a journey with you. Another good example of it is with celebrities. Like when a celebrity dies or a famous person dies, people come out in mourning, genuine mourning for that person that most of them have never ever met. And that's all down to 7-11-4. You've spent 7 hours with them. You've had 11 touch points. You've met them in 4 different locations. And so they hold an emotional part of your brain. You are genuinely upset that this person has died. So how you 7-11-4 people is the interesting point. Most companies do not, first of all, they're not aware of that, the way that marketing works for clever companies now. And secondly, they do not have any system in place of being able to 7-11-4 people. So what I'm going to try to do through this workshop is try to give you an understanding of how that works in the real world and let you see that actually it's really not that complicated. So before I showed you that sales funnel, the recognized sales funnel, this one over here on the right, there's a stage of awareness, then interest, then consideration, then intent, then evaluation, then eventually somebody buys something from you. And if you look at it in terms of the last slide we were looking at, actually, it could be, you could view it this way as well. When they're at the stage of awareness, they're right on the edge of the dormant market. They're aware that your company exists, but they don't really have any reason to want to use you. And then maybe they take one step into the stage of interest, whereby they maybe looked at a piece of content around what to do if you're thinking about selling in 12 months or something like that. Or they even just went to your website. Then they stepped in a bit further to consideration. They did some other action. Then they stepped into the stage of actually intending to go forward with it. And eventually they got to the stage where they have had a pitch from you, like a valuation or a market appraisal, and are actually thinking about putting their house on the market. So evaluation one sort of sits in the middle there, depending on how good your pitch is. And that is how someone moves from the outside of the dormant market to the middle. And through that process, what we want them to do is spend 7 hours, have 11 touch points and meet us in 4 different locations as they go through that process. So if you go to page 4 of your workbook, you'll see this blank funnel. Quite often, you might see a video or a piece of advice on social media from a content writer talking about how no one's interested in hearing about you. No one's interested in the fact that you've won awards. No one's interested in your Rightmove pie chart. No one's interested in this. No one's interested in all of that kind of stuff. And actually, that's not true. It's true for a certain part of the funnel. So we need to start thinking about being relevant and helpful to people at every stage that they go through, from the outside of the dormant market through to interest, consideration, intent, evaluation. So as an example, if I'm at the stage of awareness, then absolutely 100%, I am not interested in the fact that you just won an award. I couldn't give a shit. And I just find it annoying. That goes back to interruption-based marketing, and people are well and truly over interruption-based marketing. They're so over it that if you go to watch a YouTube video, your finger hovers over the skip button for the 5 seconds that you have to wait. That's how over interruption-based marketing people are. So if you're still doing it, then you're probably wasting your money. There's another way. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be trying to close deals and find the active market. But if you're still interrupting people with leaflets and stuff like that, then you're probably putting your money in the wrong place. Anyway, getting back to the point. If I'm at the stage of awareness and I see a piece of content that is about the fact that you just won an award, I don't care. However, if you understand content funnels, then you have also created other content for people at the stage of awareness. If I'm at the stage of evaluation, I've actually had a pitch from 3 estate agents and I'm considering who to use, then yes, I am really interested in the fact that you just won an award. And I am really interested in your Rightmove pie chart. And I'm really interested in your testimonials and the fact that you've sold £5 million worth of property in the area in the last 3 months, or whatever it is. I'm really interested. So the whole point of a content funnel, remember, we're just talking about the content now. We're not talking about how life cycle works. We're not talking about Facebook. The whole point of a content funnel is for you to figure out how to create content that is relevant and helpful for people at all of those stages of the funnel. Okay? Let's look at it in terms of when you guys might investigate working with Iceberg. There'll be a stage where you're at the stage of awareness. You're not really interested in knowing about an in-depth function in the system, but you might be interested in a piece of content around how software has made lives easier for real estate agents. Nothing to do with life cycle, just that. So I need to be aware that there's certain people that are going to want to consume that content. And I need to not worry about the fact that it isn't going to lead to a direct sale. Just as you creating a piece of content about the 4 best schools in the area is not going to lead to an instruction. It just isn't. But it's for the awareness market. So we're going to go through the stages of what sort of content does each one of these stages require. And then we're going to do some tasks whereby you guys can just spend a bit of time writing down the titles of some subjects that you think fit into that bracket. So, first of all, let's look at the awareness stage. So who is the awareness stage for? The awareness stage is basically aimed at anyone in your local area, anyone in the areas you cover. So some of you might even be national, in which case, like, you know, this is where it comes back to you need a big marketing budget if you are. But if you're geographically based in an area, again, let's just use, I don't know, Canterbury as the example that we'll go through with this workshop. You're based in Canterbury. Awareness-based content should be designed to let every single person that lives in Canterbury, regardless of age, gender, or anything else, know that you exist. That's what awareness-based content is for. You might turn around and say, well, why do I want a 16-year-old kid to know that I exist? They're not going to be selling a house. No, they're not going to be selling a house. But when their parents are saying, oh, we might put the house on the market, we want them to be also going, oh, I've seen there's a really good estate agent called Regal, or there's a really good estate agent called Neil King, or whoever it is. We want everyone in Canterbury to know about our brand. This is just for awareness. So, what should those people be seeing? The content that you should put at this stage of the funnel is not salesy in any way. It's designed for anyone that lives in that area to find useful. You're an estate agent, or most of you are, not everybody on the call is, I don't think, but obviously most of you are estate agents. So when I say the content shouldn't be salesy, you can't really do content about things like holidays and recipes. I don't want a recipe from an estate agent. I don't give a shit that an estate agent knows how to cook an apple crumble. So you need to make sure that your content fits into your area of expertise in some way. Now, whilst we don't want it to be salesy, an estate agent is an expert in the local area and they are an expert in property. So those are the two subjects that we want to try to stay within. And the local area one is very good for the stage of awareness because they don't necessarily need to be interested in property. So for instance, you're such an expert in the local area that you could talk to them about the 3 best schools in the local area. You could actually go and do a video interview with 3 headmasters from 3 private schools in the local area talking about why their school is so successful. You can talk about the 5 best restaurants within a half-hour drive of Canterbury town centre. You can talk about how to get more involved in your local community. You can talk about success stories from the local community. You can go, I know one of our agents who's really successful with video, went and interviewed a local pizza shop and did a whole video about how he makes his pizzas and then an offer or that people could go and they could like his page or something like that and they would get a discount on the pizzas. I know another estate agent that at Christmas did an advent calendar of local businesses over video. So all of that stuff is awareness. And there was a time, if you're in the mindset of how marketing worked in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, where you would say, what's the fucking point of that? Why are we doing adverts about like the 3 best schools in the area? That's not going to lead to any valuations. You're damn right. It's not going to lead to any valuations. So you are going to be a little bit in the dark, and that's where the life cycle system comes into things. But we'll get into that later. But that's how you do awareness-based content. Okay, the reason you're marketing to these people is just for brand awareness. There's a few examples that I put on the workbook there. You can see them on the screen. You can talk about property decor, interior design, what's on guides in the local area, what's happening in the local area, all of that stuff. I've given you some examples now. So that leads us to the first task. The first task is going to be you guys now spend the next, I don't know, let's call it 5 minutes, 10 minutes, something like that. 7.5 minutes. Right? Let's spend until 10:02, where you just take a bit of time and write down on your worksheet or on a notepad 3 ideas that you can think of around the stage of awareness. Just titles. You don't have to start writing the whole article. Just what the title of the article might be, And don't worry too much about it. Don't get caught up on whether it's too long or too short or any of that stuff. Just some general ideas. And then once we get to 10-2, I'll ask a few people if they want to raise their hand, and we can just talk through some of the ideas that they came up with before we went to the next section. Go for it. Okay, it's not quite 10-2, but I had a little scroll through all the video cameras that are on, and some of you look like you were finished. Some of you look like you was about to kill yourselves. Some of you look like you were still working. So I think it's probably, we can probably try and run through a few of the ideas now. Is anyone happy to raise a hand and just give us some examples of some of the things that they wrote down? I'm not, yeah, okay, hold on. So, let me just, Tony, unmute. Okay, Tony, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yep.
Great. So what did you come up with, Tony?
I went for local sporting organisations in our town. Also clubs and societies, what to do in the area, which I think you alluded to earlier, and the variety of different restaurants that we have in the area as well.
Perfect. And can you see how that would be applicable for anybody in the local area? It doesn't matter if they're thinking about selling a house.
So. Yeah, keeping it nice and broad rather than being specific. So
awesome, brilliant. Okay, going to mute you again, Tony. Don't forget to lower your hand again, Tony. That's it. Perfect. So Simon, let's unmute Simon. Hold on a sec. Unmute Simon. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Mark. So, morning group. So, at my little end of the world, we have a thing called ESP, which I'd like to quickly share with you, which is exposure service presentation. So, when it comes to awareness tasks on presentation, if you can create little tiny booklets with how to improve your garden and make your garden work, the nice thing about that one is you can actually keep rolling the garden idea out seasonally. If you look at interior designs, then again on seasons, you've got what's on trend, what's off trend, but also if your local town has got, for argument's sake, a TK Maxx, there's no harm in you suddenly turning around and spotting stuff in the home section of TK Maxx, for argument's sake, and saying, spotted this would work, it's on trend. So under the presentation still, general home improvements. And when it comes to general home improvements, if your town or area has still got one of those old-fashioned Arkwright type shops, get him involved, and say, oh, by the way, if you've got one of those old ledged and braced gates and you've got a hinge missing, you're never going to get this easily online. However, Fred's corner shop, they still do them. He's got 3 left. I saw him in his window last week. Suddenly he talks about you as well. So you make him help you go viral. On the exposure side of ESP, if you do a school guide for where they are in Ofsted, that's always handy for people out of the area looking in. But it's also good for general information. People want to know how they rate, how they rank. And the people that you've put the highest on Ofsted sometimes end up sharing your content because their ego's stroked. But also you can do what I'd call a local amenity guide. And then it's not just about the Ofsted thing, which is an easy default. You can start looking at things like restaurants, cafes, little craft shops, and so on and so forth. But get the owners of those involved as well on little video things about what they're doing. Then they're doing it viral for you.
Are these your 3 videos? Are these your 3 ideas?
Yeah, that's the exposure one. And on the service, it was again choosing a solicitor, choosing the mortgage, free stamp duty calculator. In my world, Mark, which is completely different, for my 3, I've put vets that particularly look after swans. I've got brokers that sell peacocks. And I've got where to buy your best venison cuts from.
Love it.
My world is slightly different. I was just trying to offer one to a general audience.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Thanks, Simon. Right, okay, I'll do one more before we move on. The next hand I've got raised here is Jill Hunt. So unmute. Can you hear me, Jill? Sorry, hold on a sec. It's not unmuted you. Hold on. Unmute. Okay, can you hear me, Jill?
I can. Hello, good morning. Yes.
Hi.
So yeah, our three ideas really. I'm here with my husband. We own the agency together. We're listening in. Thank you. We live in Jersey in the Channel Islands.
Okay, nice.
So we've just been looking at different areas. We have a lovely harbour called St Aubin. We've got houses for sale there, but it's beautiful with restaurants and everything. So we think we might do something on why we love St Aubin, and there's some gorgeous shops and cafes there.
Wow, yeah. I mean, I'd like to watch that. I'd like to watch a video about that.
Yeah, so we thought that. Then we thought we actually have 12 parishes in Jersey. You're not sure if it might be too much to do them, although one could do one a month. But then we thought about just doing north, south, east and west on the island, and what's best to visit there, you know, conservation areas, surfing, past walks, the history, that type of thing. And what we love about the island, maybe that might be the angle.
Yep, brilliant.
Thanks for that.
No, that's awesome. Can you so I've never spoken to you before. So is that making sense? Why you would do that in order just for brand awareness? Is that something that you guys have looked at doing before, or you know, did the 7-Eleven 4 make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, and we like the idea of interviewing relevant people as well. You know, so we think we could link up, say, with the Commodore at St Albans, you know, the Royal Channel Islands Yacht Club, and you know, talk about the appeal of the area for with the people who've got something specific there.
100%. And just think back to what I was saying about how people get attached to celebrities. So the more video stuff that you can do, I know it sounds a little bit crazy that, you know, you become famous, but it's just the way the brain works. You spend time with somebody digitally. You're the one that's always talking to the yacht clubs. You're the one that's always talking to the people in the shops. You're the one that's always talking to the sellers that have had a great experience. You're the one that's always talking to buyers about why they moved to Jersey. You're just the person that people know, like, and trust. So that's great. Okay, I'm just going to mute you again. Hold on. So there were a couple of other hands up, but I need to move on to the next task. Otherwise, we'll never get through all of this in time. So if you guys that have still got your hands up can just lower them, that'd be good. Okay, so next up, next stage of the funnel is interest. So who is this for? Okay, now we're getting a little bit more specific. We've got our awareness content out there that's for anybody. What we're trying to do now is we are trying to pluck out people that maybe at some point might consider selling their house. There's some people out there that if you said, are you thinking, any chance that you'll ever move, they just say no. So we're trying to just go one step in. We don't want to rush straight to the middle. We don't want people that are thinking about selling their house now. We don't want people even that are thinking about selling their house in the next month or two. We want people that they wouldn't click on this piece of content unless they had some inkling somewhere that they might decide to move at some point in the future. Okay, so some of the examples that I've given here, what percentage deposit should you put down if you're thinking about buying? So I'm not going to read that piece of content unless I at some point I'm thinking about buying. If I haven't even figured out my deposit yet, I'm way out on the edge of the market. Keeping up with landlord legislation. I mean, you know, I guess you could argue that you wouldn't read that unless you were already a landlord, but it's outside content. You know, it's not somebody that's necessarily going to come and give you some business today. It's on the edge of them doing something with you. What buyers are looking for when they do a viewing, what to do if you're thinking about moving in the next 18 months. That's a great one because it puts a time scale in the title. So 18 months might be too accurate, but you might say something like, you know, what you should be doing if you're thinking about moving at some point in the next 2 years or something like that. Right on the edge. And don't, like I say, don't worry too much about, well, I wouldn't know what to write in that article. You'll figure it out, or you can use a content writer. It's really not that much of an issue. Don't get into the ins and outs of like, well, what would we write about? Forget that for a minute. Just think of a title that would be good to see the difference between somebody that is watching your content about the local area because they live in the local area and somebody who might be tempted to move at some point in the future. Okay, so have a go at writing out 3 ideas for the interest stage of your funnel. We don't think we need quite as long as I gave us last time, so let's do 5 minutes, and then we'll go through some of the ideas that people come up with. Okay, so who? Oh, we've got some hands. Great, awesome. Let's go with Laura to start with. Okay, Laura, can you hear me? Hi, you okay?
Yeah, I'm good. Are you?
Good, yep, good, thank you. What you got?
I've got 10 things every first-time buyer must know. Perfect.
So the reason I like that is just because you know, first-time buyers, they're always pretty much on the edge of the market, aren't they? You know, they're by default, they haven't got a property to sell. So the things that they need to know puts that content right at the edge of the market and makes that somebody that is probably not very comfortable with what the deal they're about to go into, because they've never bought a property before. It allows them to look at you guys and think, oh, I like this, you know, these guys seem really helpful, and it pushes them along that journey of becoming a customer. Now, you know, there might be agents thinking, yeah, but we want vendors. But I think if one of the things that this kind of coronavirus situation has shown us is that actually we probably need to just start looking at everybody as a client now, buyers, vendors, landlords, tenants, and how we do a bit more of a long-term strategy just to make people think that they're dealing with a fantastic company as opposed to just focusing on vendors. So I love that. Okay, I'm going to just mute you again. Let's go with Julie Hill. Unmute. Julie, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hi.
Great. What you got?
The first one I've got is when's the best time of year to sell your home?
Yeah, brilliant.
Quite straightforward. Just put the timing in people's mind. I've got do you need an estate agent to sell your home?
Yeah, that's a really good one. Yeah.
So obviously you can go into what you're offering as an agent to somebody and why they should use an agent, just so it's not the hard sell selling yourself, but agency as a whole. And another one was successful downsizing.
Yeah, I love that. And I really like the second one as well, because one of the problems that people have when they do content writing is talking about anything that could potentially be negative. And people see straight through that. I like the idea of that content, and I like the idea of it being really quite honest and giving options whereby, you know, here's an option, you could just go and do this. And, you know, I'm not saying push people away from you, but it's just honest advice. There's a website that you guys might want to write down called Answer the Public. I think it's answerthepublic.com. And when you go there, you can type in phrases like products or services like estate agent or dresses or planes or anything that people might search on Google. And what it does is it tells you all the questions people ask Google about that subject. And so even if it's a subject that you don't really want to get involved with, like why are estate agency fees so expensive, as an example, people are searching it. So you need to come up with an answer, otherwise someone else is going to give that answer for you. So thanks for that, Julie. Really, really good. Just going to mute you again. Okay, Steve Beercox, unmuted. You okay?
Yeah, you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. What you got?
I've got 9 things to add value to your home for under £1,000.
Brilliant.
So people maybe on lockdown at the moment trying to think what they can be doing to the house. So I think it would work quite well for that. Go on. Next one was how to appeal to first-time buyers when selling your home.
Perfect. Yep.
So I'm aiming more for vendors, but I totally take on board the...
No, it's fine. I mean, look, the thing is that once you get into this way of doing marketing, there can never be enough content. You'll run out of ideas if you just come up with like 3 things. It's an ongoing thing. So it doesn't matter that you're going to aim it at vendors. At some point, you'll flip it around and do that for buyers, you know? So you just turn the tables on that same piece of content.
Yeah, that's great. And my third one was actually exactly the same as the previous ladies. Do I need an estate agent to sell? I think that's great.
Yeah, I think that's really good. The first one, nine ways to increase the value of your home. Those types of pieces of content are really popular because it gives people, in the title, it gives them the idea that, like, oh, this is going to be quick and simple. All I'm going to do is read these quick 9 things and, 3 things, 4 things, all of that sort of stuff. Those types of pieces of content are really popular. I'm not saying exclusively stick to that, but that type of stuff works really well. So that's really good. I'm just going to mute you again. Let's quickly do one more. I've got Dave Gibbs here. Unmute. Dave, how you doing? Can you hear me? Not sure your mic's working, so I'm just going to go to Alex Budd. Unmute. Can you hear me, Alex?
Hi, Mark. You're right.
Yeah, very good. Thanks. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Thank you. My idea was just a continuation of the first-time buyer one, really, which was a guide on help to buy, shared ownership, because that's all quite complicated.
Yep.
And that was the only sort of one I had in there, really.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. I mean, so can you see how that moves someone from the stage of just looking at awareness content, and if they started looking at some of that content, they're just moved gradually. They may have consumed the first bit of awareness content where you was talking about, I don't know, local schools or local businesses, and now they're moving more onto a bit more of a specialized subject. Already, can you start to see how they would be getting the feeling that I should be working with this guy?
Yeah, well, if you become an expert in the area, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, right, I'm going to mute you again. Okay, right, let's, if anybody who's got their hand up can lower their hand, let's move on to the next section. How are we doing for time? 12:10, so I think we're going to be okay. Right, now we're going to start getting interesting. So the first 2 sections of the funnel, awareness and interest, they're both really, there's no chance that person's going to put their house on the market with you. I know that some of you guys have got content there where you could say, well, if you've just read, 9 ways to increase the value of your home, you might well be putting your house on the market, and maybe you will. But the concept is that if I go on your website and I click around, it doesn't matter what piece of content I read. Even if I read a piece of content saying what to do if you're thinking about selling your house in the next 24 hours, that doesn't on its own quantify me as being in the kind of consideration or intent or evaluation stage, because all I'm doing is clicking around on your blog. I might go onto any one of you guys' blogs tomorrow and just have a click about and click on an article that you consider to be putting me at the stage of evaluation, but actually, no, I'm just aware of your company and I'm at the stage of interest. So as far as content goes, anyone who's all they've ever done is read some of your content, they should only ever be considered at the stage of awareness or interest. Okay. However, in the real world, as we spoke about at the beginning, people in their own minds are at different stages of the funnel. Some are at the stage of consideration, some are at the stage of the intent, some are at the stage of evaluation. So now we need to just try and create content that would be suitable for those people. Again, they're just going on your website, they're just going to read it, but what's suitable for them? So this is aimed at anyone that is really at the stage of awareness or interest and has a specific interest in your company or something like Rightmove or Zoopla. They're in that market somewhere. And what we want to do at this stage is we want to try to get another level of commitment beyond just clicking around on our blog, reading articles and going away again and doing the same thing. Because those people, we can always class them as just at the stage of awareness or interest. Again, think about products that you might like. Let's go back to the car idea. You particularly like, I don't know, BMWs. So you go on the BMW website and you watch some of their videos and you read some of their blogs and you do this and you do that. But that's all you ever do because you're not actually going to buy one yet. So for the stage of consideration, what we want to do is we want to make somebody download something. We want it to be something where they actually have to make the commitment of filling out some sort of a form. And if they don't want to fill out the form, that's fine. They can continue with our free gifts, our articles on our website. That's all good. And we can know that they're still just at that stage of awareness and interest. But we want the next stage to be one whereby it's if they download say an ebook, or they go on and do one of your online valuations, or they use your social distancing valuation tool, or in some way or another, they go to the trouble of handing over their details or their email address, or whatever it is, we can say, okay, this person's a little bit more interested than the ones who are just clicking around on the blog. So for the stage of consideration, what we want to do is think up some ideas for forms that we could get people to fill out, web forms. And don't think of a web form as like anything complicated, anything more than just a place where someone's going to put in their details and get something in return. What could they get in return? What could we push out and advertise to people as fill this out and get this, that would make it worth their while? So again, a couple of examples for you. One is obvious one, which I think a lot of you have got access to, is having an instant valuation tool. Find out roughly what your property is worth in 60 seconds. Go here to fill out our form. Only people at the stage of consideration should really do that. I know that a lot of you will get leads from that go nowhere, but that's fine. At the stage of consideration, they're not supposed to go anywhere. So something like that. Some of the life cycle users have got a tool called social distance evaluation, which is similar to instant val, a little bit more in depth, where you can upload photos and stuff. So something like that, or ebooks, e-guides, workbooks, downloadable content in some way or another. So some of that stuff that you might have just put in a blog, you're now going to hide it behind a form, but it's going to have to be relevant enough for people that are at that stage of consideration to think, I'd really like to read that. So you wouldn't, for instance, put the 3 best restaurants in the local area in a ebook where people have to fill out their details to download it, because they'd be like, I ain't that bothered, I'll just go and Google it. It's got to be something whereby it's easier for them to download the ebook or do the online valuation than it is for them to just stick it into a Google search. Again, I'm just going to give you another example before we break to do it, so it's completely clear. The 4 things that you need to do to avoid going to prison if you're a landlord. Okay, if I stick that in Google, I'm going to get a random load of information come up. So I need that specific ebook to answer that question for me. If you are thinking of selling your property in the next 3 months, the 6 most crucial things that you must do now. Okay, hopefully from that you can see, if I put that in Google, I don't really get any quantifiable results. Okay, so let's have 5 minutes, try and come up with some ideas, and then we'll go through some of those ideas. Okay, I look through the cameras. I see a lot of people with their hands on their heads like that. I don't know if this was a particularly difficult one or not, but let's see how we got on. So I've got a couple of people with hands up. Let's go. Rob Wells, unmute. You okay, Rob?
Yeah. Hi, Mark. Good morning.
Yeah. How you doing?
Yeah, we're good. Good. I think probably one that I don't know. I would think 90%, 95% of sellers wouldn't understand, and that's total fees. Total fees. So that includes absolute estate agency. That can be the mortgage arrangement fees, survey fees, private survey fees, removal costs, utilities, swapping, whatever it may be. Something like that on a web form to drag people in.
Yeah.
And then of course you can go in depth with that as far as you want to go.
Yeah. So something like find out with our easy guide exactly how much moving will cost you, and you might be surprised. Something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Stamp duty being the obvious one. How many people don't understand how stamp duty works nowadays? I mean, Christ, even we have to think about it, so they've got no chance. So
no, brilliant. That's a really good one. Thanks for that, Rob. Okay, let's go. Next one, I've got Mark Jackson, unmute. Mark, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Mark?
Hello, Mark.
Oh.
Is it me?
How you doing, Jackie?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I'm logged in on Mark's machine, and I think.
Yeah, no, that's all right. That's all right. What you got?
So I've put styling for the portals on a budget.
Okay.
So, and then a checklist of things to do just to make your house more presentable, but to a little bit of data, a little bit of information around it, but then to click for the full version of the list for things to do. So your portal ready.
So what I would say is that if I put those titles into Google, I might come up with some results. So you can make small tweaks to those titles to include words like the 4 secrets you need to know about presenting your house.
Okay.
I can't really Google that and get the same results on every single web page. Yeah. So it's the same content as what you were going to write, but can you see how the title makes it so that I've got to download the document if I want to know the answer?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
All right, no problem. That's really good. Let's do one more. Abigail, unmute. Can you hear me?
I can. Morning, Mark. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks. You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. Right, I had a couple, but I got ebook for the first-time landlord. So 5 things you need to know if you're renting for the first time.
Yeah, that's perfect. So, or something like the secrets you need to know to be a successful landlord, or something like that. Yeah, brilliant.
And then I also had one about a compliance checklist. So I don't know, top 5 things you need to do to make sure you're fully compliant with legislation.
Yeah, perfect. And that's really great. Thanks for that, Abigail. So hopefully from that you guys can get a good understanding that a lot of that content, certainly the downloadable content, is in the title. If you just make the title basic, then it's pretty unlikely someone's going to go ahead and download it. Obviously, you're not going to make a misleading title. You don't want to say to people, "Hey, come and have a look at my Ferrari," and they come around the corner and you've got a mini Metro. So it's got to be relevant, but just maybe have a think about creating titles that are very hard to just stick into Google. I can put into Google how to calculate my stamp duty. So I don't need to go and download a document about it. But I might download the document that if it said the hidden cost of moving that most buyers don't think about. Like that, I can't Google it and know that the answer I'm getting is the same as the one in the document. So hopefully that makes some sense for you. My slide's gone back. Oh no, it hasn't. Okay, right, let's move on to the next stage of the funnel. So intent is the next stage in. Complicated this, right? But, think about it from your own point of view. You don't really just become aware of something, go out, rush out and buy it. So what we want to make sure we're doing is, as I said at the beginning, we are relevant for people and we are helpful for people, regardless of the stage they're at. So don't ever get to the stage where you just think like, oh God, I can't be bothered with all this. This is everything. This is everything now. Like, I will go into how life cycle helps with some of this stuff, but regardless of whether you're using life cycle or whether you're not using life cycle, whether that makes things better for you or doesn't make things better for you, you must do content marketing. You must, because not doing it it's just not an option. Not doing it is 100% not going to work. Right? So we can be absolutely sure of that because you're not doing it. So you must start somewhere and don't worry too much about making it all absolutely perfect. Just start getting it out. Okay, so the stage of intent. So someone has filled out one of your forms and we now consider them to be at the stage of consideration. They're a bit more serious. They've come through the stages of awareness and interest, and they wouldn't have downloaded our document unless they were particularly interested in the subject title. They wouldn't have bothered handing over their personal details for no reason whatsoever. So they're now at the stage of consideration. So who is at the stage of intent and who are we aiming at here? So this is, as I say, this is really aimed for anybody that's filled out forms but haven't yet asked you round to do a formal presentation or pitch, or market appraisal, whatever you want to call it. So what we need to make sure that these people are seeing is why they should have an estate agent round their house. Okay, why? We're not asking them to list. We're not telling them why they should put their house on the market with us. We're not doing any of that stuff yet. We're just saying why it's important that they speak to an expert before they go ahead and start making any decisions. Yeah, we know that they've downloaded a document. We know that perhaps they've downloaded Steve's document on how to increase the value of their house by an extra, £1,000 by doing 9 things. But don't now go ahead and think that you know everything. Like, it's very important that you get an estate agent round to your house to talk you through things. I would say, again, this is just content. We're not asking them to download this. This is just content that's sitting on the internet, right, for free. So I would say that when you're writing this content, you might not talk about it in the title. You might come up with some, you guys might just come up with some shorter titles, but just to bear in mind that when you actually go ahead and get this content properly created and written or videoed, try to stay away from all of the general things that an estate agent might say. You've got to get an estate agent around your house to value it, because otherwise you won't get an accurate valuation, and you might put it on the market for not enough money. It's just bullshit, right? I mean, it's true, but everyone says it. So I can get any estate agent around. It doesn't mean I need to get you around. So you won't necessarily be able to get this reasoning into the title. I'm just giving you a bit of advice when it comes to actually creating the content. We might need to sit and have a think about, well, why do I need to get you round to my house? Like, why you? Why you specifically? Why am I not going to read your content about the fact that I need an estate agent to come round and then go and phone up another estate agent? So, you might not be able to get that into the titles of these articles, but just bear that in mind for when you go ahead and make the content. Hopefully that makes some sort of sense. So just to recap, what we're trying to do here is we're imagining somebody's going to hit your website today, and they previously have downloaded some sort of form or done an online valuation. Let's make it simple and say they've done an online valuation. They're hitting your website today. What article would be useful to them that would make them think, yeah, before we go any further, I should really make sure that I have a face-to-face conversation with this person, or at least a telephone call, or something where they've gone that next stage. They've gone from the outside of looking at your content about the local area. They've gone one step in to looking at content about what to do if you're thinking about moving in the next 2 years. They've gone another step into downloading your ebook about what to do if they've done an online valuation. Now, what could they read that would make them think, okay, well, the next stage for us, I guess, is to get an estate agent round to our house, or to at least phone them up and move one step closer to becoming on the emotional side and having a connection with you. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's give it a couple of minutes. You guys know the drill. Down the bottom on this screen here, you can see a couple of examples why face-to-face valuation is important, why instant valuation tools can be misleading. Remember, we know that they might have done that, so we can now start. We're not pushing them away from the instant valuation tool, that they've already done it. So we can now move them on to, why they're just based on algorithms, that sort of stuff. All right, guys, I'm going to mute my mic and I'll give you a couple of minutes to come up with some ideas. I reckon we might, and we might have, most of you might have got that done now, actually, from looking at the screen. So I've got a few hands up. Let's go with Ben to start with. How you doing, Ben? You okay?
Yeah, good, mate. You?
Yeah, very good, thank you. What you got?
So I've got why presentation in the marketing of your home is everything, and base the article around sort of photography and 3D virtual tours and everything. Yeah. I got advice on how to prepare your home for sale, and base the article around a home visit, and then house market trends in the D-side area, and again base the article around the home visit.
Okay, so I like that. The last one, home market trends in the D-side area, I'd probably push up the funnel a little bit. Maybe I'd put that as downloadable content at consideration.
Right, okay.
The other two, yeah, definitely. What you have to be careful of when you write those articles is what a lot of people do is they give all of the advice in the actual article. What you want to try and make sure that you do when you write those articles, or when your content writer writes them, is to make the points, but the solution is to have the estate agent round. So as an example, you might say a face-to-face valuation is really important because we need to get the exact measurements of your home, and from that we take the average price and we start working out a price per square foot, and we do this and we do this and we do that. And we've just told them the whole method, as opposed to saying it's very important for us to visit your home so that we can get an accurate price per square foot. And then there's no explanation of how we do it. It's just we need to visit the home to do that. Now, I know not everybody works on price per square foot, but it's just an example. Like, we need the article to be useful to them. So I put it into the shoes of how we might do that. I can hold a workshop talking about how content marketing works, but it wouldn't be much use if I said, here's a workshop on how content marketing works, and it works like this. Like, no one would bother coming to the workshop.
Yeah,
just be aware of that when you're creating content, because I see that mistake by a lot of people. They create content. You'll see it all the time. If you look at and when you see Facebook ads that say, go click here to find out our solution on how to bring in 100 clients next month. And you know that when you go there, it's not going to tell you the solution. It's going to tell you to go and sign up to a £25 course or something. So, all right, thanks for that, Ben. That's really useful. So next, Jack. Hold on a minute. I've just had something pop up. So unmute Jack. Jack, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Cool. What did you come up with, Jack?
I think the best one we came up with is why a good estate agent can make you more money than they cost you.
Yeah. Really good. Really good.
One for rentals as well, like why you need an estate agent to review your rental home before it goes to the market.
I was just thinking about the first piece of content that you mentioned there. The second one's really good as well. The first one, I'd probably change that slightly, because if I saw a piece of content from an estate agent saying why an estate agent makes you more than they charge you, I'd just assume it was biased content. So I might do the same article, but I might flip the heading up a little bit to actually be a bit more, say something like how to work out the return on investment from your estate agency fee.
Yeah.
Because you're not telling a lie, you're not pulling the wool over anyone's eyes, you're not trying to do a sale, you're just blatantly showing them, if I charge you 2% and I get you 10% extra, you can't possibly lose.
Yeah.
So I just try to, I'd probably just tweak that title a little bit, because, if I put a downloadable piece of content out there, sorry, I just keep trying to relate it to how you guys see things. If I put a piece of downloadable content out there about, or a piece of content that says, read why Lifecycle is the best estate agency marketing platform in the world, you kind of know, like, you'd say, well, you would say that, Mark. You built it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. As opposed to me creating a piece of content that says, here's how you figure out whether Lifecycle is paying you back any money or not.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks for that. What's the time? Okay, I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on to the next section. I've got a lot of hands up. Sorry, guys. But I'm going to move on to the next section because I've got a few things I want to cover in the next 20 minutes. I know we don't have to bang on 12, but it's best if we try and stick to the schedule. So the evaluation stage. Right, now this bit you guys are going to find an absolute piece of piss. So you know how to do this. This is how interruption-based marketing works. These people have had a market appraisal from you. So now we want to literally blow them away with like success stories, your USPs, why you're the best agent in your area, the dangers of not using your company to sell their property, testimonials, all of that sort of stuff. You can go to town talking about your company now. So I'm guessing that this one's going to be pretty simple. Again, just try to think of it from their point of view. I know it's easy to just write down like, oh, we could talk about our awards. Yep, we could definitely talk about your awards. But try to think of the heading that makes them go, you know, we really should be using these guys. I know they're double the price of, you know, that other bloke who we spoke to, but think of them, try to think of this person as having gone through every single piece of content that we've just spoken about, all the way from awareness to the stage of evaluation over the course of the next 6 months, okay? They've been literally stalking your company. You helped them at the stage of awareness. You helped them at the stage of intent. You helped them at the stage of consideration. You helped them at the stage of interest. And now, here they are. They've had you round their house. You've sat down with them. You've spoken to them. They actually really want to use you. Inside, they're desperate to use you. But you know the customer who says, I really want to use you, but Bob down the road says he'll do it for half the price. If you can match that, I'll go with you. That guy, right? What's the content we want them to read in their own time that makes them go, yeah, I mean, I know Bob down the road is half the price, but have you seen what these guys do? Okay? I'm imagining you guys are going to rattle this one out, so we'll go 2 or 3 minutes, and then when you're ready, when some of you are ready, just put your hands up, and I'll just keep an eye on that, and then we can move on to the next stage. Okay, let's do it. Tony, you was first to get your hand up, so what do you got?
Okay, we sell 85% of what we list and achieve in excess of 98% of asking price. We have a dedicated sales progressor, which therefore increases the less likelihood of the sales falling through, because someone's actually focusing on the sales chasing rather than having to do it.
So the title for that particular bit would be why our sales don't fall through.
Yeah, why our sales don't fall through, and also high levels of customer service justified with glowing testimonials.
You know what? Actually, thinking about it, they're all brilliant. Thinking about that one, why our sales don't fall through, it's a bit, it's like industry jargon, isn't it? A fall through. We all know what it means. So we might just want to, actually hit home with that. You know, why our sales actually result in you getting money in the bank, as opposed to just leading you down the garden path and going nowhere. You know, that sort of stuff.
I understand. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, really, really, really good. Okay. Right, I'm going to unmute you, Simon. Do not take up the rest of my meetings. Right, you're unmuted.
Okay, super fast then. What do you get for the extra 1%? I charge 2.5% plus VAT. And with my clients, they say, how much? 2.5%? Well, plus that, that's 3% actually.
Yep.
What do you actually get for the extra 1% over the industry average? My most arrogant one that I'm the proudest of, because I say to all my clients, make a great blog as well, the 5 criteria required for me to consider representing your family, and is your selling agent also a buyer agent? And it's actually talking about the relationship. You've built such a great relationship. Why do you say goodbye at the sale? Why are they helping you with your onward journey?
Brilliant. And anyone that's listening thinking, bullshit, you charge 2.5%, 3%, 100% Simon does. I've seen the figures. And not only that, what's the brilliant thing about it is that when he does his testimonial videos for the world to see, he sits with the vendor and actually says, why the hell did you pay me 2.5% when you could have gone down the road and got it for 1%? And what a brilliant testimonial. So I love that. I mean, I think there's probably a lot of agents in the room that are not quite ready to do that yet. We can do other workshops about how you get to that stage. But yep, love all of those. Thanks very much, Simon. I've got. Is there anyone else? Anyone else? Just having a look here. No one else got their hand up at the moment. So I'm gonna hope that you all managed to get that section done. If not, I think you got the gist of it. So you can always fill it out at a later date. Okay, right. I've got about 13 minutes till we're supposed to go for lunch. I think we might run over a tiny bit, but hopefully we can end pretty much on 1 if we move on with this. So what I want you to do now, if you go to page 10 of the workbook, I know obviously it's probably not in that order, but if you go to the page that looks like this, I said today in this workshop that I would help you build a content marketing funnel. I've said that we're going to look at the 3 different funnels: content funnel, life cycle funnel, Facebook funnel. So now we understand how a content funnel works. Don't worry about how do you move people through it. Don't worry about how do you run ads around it. Don't worry about any of that stuff. I want you to think of this like you understand the principle of 7-11-4 and active and dormant markets. You understand the principle of how you shop for products and you go and you look at things and you read things and how you get newsletters about stuff. Imagine your website and the blog side of your website. It needs to contain content that will be helpful and useful and relevant for people at all stages of the funnel. It doesn't matter where they are. We've got no way of knowing, or most of you have got no way of knowing, where people are at what stage of the funnel. So we want content on our website to constantly be some of awareness, some of interest, some consideration, some intent, some evaluation. Based on the ideas that you've just come up with, write down the 2 best ideas that you've got in each stage of this funnel so that you then have a complete marketing funnel with 2 ideas at each stage. I'll give you a couple of minutes just to do that, and then I'll carry on. Okay. So hopefully you've all managed to write that out now, and you've got a good idea of how your content marketing strategy now works. That's the main part of the first session that I wanted to try to get across to people, to take people from a situation whereby someone could say to them, oh, do you do content marketing or sell or do you have anything like that? And they just sort of think, yeah, I do a bit, I don't really know. Or they're listening to someone online saying, you know, don't talk about yourselves, make sure you make content about things that people are interested in. Now, hopefully, you've got a clear understanding of, one, why do we do content marketing? And why is some of it so different to others? There's no right or wrong. We just need to make sure that the content is relevant for all the different stages. That's the first thing. You hopefully have got a good understanding of that now, how 7-11-4 works, why we are even trying to do it in the first place. 2, we've got a good understanding of the strategy behind how we stay on top of this. You've got an actual list of 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 articles that you now need to go and get done. You can write them yourself. You can use a content writer. There's a couple of content writers actually, or one content writer in this group. I can put you in contact with them afterwards. We'll send you over some of our preferred suppliers. They understand all this, okay? So if you've just got the title and you need the articles written, they can do it. If you want to write them yourselves, then that's fine as well. Or if you want to record the videos, brilliant. But it will never be a job that you can tick off the list and say it's done. This is your marketing strategy. You create these 10 articles, right? You put them on your blog. They live on your website. You've now got 10 articles around that, the 2 around each stage. Next month or next quarter, one or the other, whichever, you know, is right for you, every other month, but not more than every quarter, do it again. New set of 10 articles, put them on the website. The next time that you decide to do it, whether it's a month later or 2 months later, 3 months later, do it again, do it again, do it again. I know that some of you might be sitting there thinking like, Jesus, I had enough trouble coming up with 3 ideas. If this is your only issue, your only problem is that you think you're not going to be able to think up 12 ideas around the stage of consideration, then that's a small problem to have. Right? We've got much bigger fucking problems on our hands at the moment. The whole world's in lockdown and no one knows what they're doing. So you've solved bigger problems than this in the past. This is it. This is your marketing strategy. How you get it in front of the right people, we will cover that in the second half of the section. So I'm hoping that that first part of this workshop is valuable to people. They came into it thinking, how does content marketing work? How does funnels work? Now you understand. This is how content works. There is no one piece of great content. There is content for every stage, and you need to constantly be creating it. And hopefully, all of you have now got your actual content funnel sat in front of you that you didn't have when we started this morning. I've got a few minutes till lunchtime, so I'm going to touch quickly on how does life cycle make any difference to that. This is going to take me a couple of minutes. So life cycle is the only platform in the world that has a live marketing funnel. Okay, so in that marketing funnel, you can't see it because I'm zoomed out, right? But each of these stages are the stages that you just wrote down stuff about. So we've got awareness at the top, then we've got interest, consideration, intent, evaluation, and down here is one business, okay? What Lifecycle does, Lifecycle has got 6,500 algorithms underneath the system, and it monitors who is at what stage of your funnel. So if you create a piece of awareness content, you can post that out through the Lifecycle system to your Facebook, to your LinkedIn, to your Twitter, send it out by email, all of that sort of stuff. And you go to sleep. And before you went to sleep, you had 7 people at the stage of awareness. You wake up in the morning, and instead of the phone hasn't rung and I haven't had any valuations and I don't really know what that piece of awareness content did, and being in the dark, you go on Lifecycle, and the awareness stage of your funnel is now at 700 people. So you actually see, whoa, that worked. Or maybe it's not. Maybe it's not gone up at all. In which case you go, oh, that piece of content didn't really seem to go down very well. I'm going to make another. I'm going to do something else. And you can keep a constant check on the heartbeat of your business. Whereas before Lifecycle, you do all of this content marketing and you just hope it works, and then you hope that one day the phone rings and you get some valuations, but I don't really know what's coming my way. So the next thing that Lifecycle does, all of those people in those stages are broken down into audiences inside Lifecycle. And Lifecycle has a partnership and an integration with Facebook Ads Manager. Okay, so each of those stages that we just spoke about, awareness, interest, consideration, intent, evaluation, more so as we get towards the bottom half of the funnel from consideration down, each of those stages show in your Facebook Ads Manager. So I know some of you won't be aware of Facebook Ads Manager. Paul Long's going to cover that in the second half of the presentation. But the point is that in Facebook Ads Manager, there's an audience of people that are at the stage of consideration that we can run an advert to using the content that we came up with for the stage of intent to try to push them down the funnel. If they go and read that piece of content around intent or do what the action is in the stage of intent, Lifecycle will move them down to the stage of intent. Now I've got an ad audience set up in Facebook called Intent, and I'm showing them the content that I want people to see at the stage of evaluation. So as an example, if filling out an online valuation form puts someone in the stage of content, of consideration, our ad to them would say, if you've ever done an online valuation, the reason you should be wary of this is because they're generated by algorithms based on properties sold in your area. And those properties could be quite wide ranging. So your valuation could be out by significant amounts of money. So therefore, if you're seriously thinking about selling your property, you should actually have an estate agent come around and value your property. We've sold over £5 million worth of property in the last 3 months in the local area, and we'd be happy to have a chat about it. And only people at the stage of consideration are seeing that ad. The second they book a valuation with you, they're not seeing that ad anymore. They're now seeing an ad that says some of the stuff that Tony spoke about. Why we're successful on over 85% of our listings, why none of our sales fall through, why we've won multiple awards, why we're the best estate agent in the area, all of that stuff. And everybody's seeing the right stuff at exactly the right time. That's how you do it using Lifecycle. Without Lifecycle, you just put the content out and you hope. And that's how most companies do it. So there's nothing wrong with that. You have to do that anyway. Regardless of whether you're going to use the life cycle system, you must do that, like we spoke about before. Not doing it is 100% not going to work. But using the life cycle system, this is one of the tools inside life cycle, aside from, you know, all of the other bits and pieces. I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but I just want to I wanted to give you guys an understanding of, so what's the life cycle funnel? The life cycle funnel is showing you who is at what stage, and it connects up. Inside life cycle, there are loads of marketing functions. You can send an SMS to people at the stage of any of these stages. You can send an email to anyone at any of these stages, but you can also run Facebook ads to anyone at any one of these stages, which allows you to easily create the right content, land in front of the right people at exactly the right time to solve their specific problems and always be relevant and useful to them. So I wanted to get that in just before lunch, because I think it's a very nice tie-in to the fact that after lunch, we're going to have Paul Long do a presentation about the inner workings of some of the Facebook ad system, how that system works, where they get their data from, how you can make sure that your stuff for awareness and interest is falling in front of people that have been looking on sites like Rightmove and Zoopla, and now they're seeing your stuff, how you can move them down through the funnel. He'll talk about some of the ways that you could use Lifecycle to do that easier, touch upon the way that you would do it if you weren't using Lifecycle. Paul's got great experience, loads of estate agents use him to look after their Facebook stuff, because whether they understand it or whether they don't, they just want somebody else to take care of it, and he specializes in that. So let's have our break. I'll tell you what, I'm just gonna quickly check to see if anybody needs to know anything. If you do, put your hand up and I'll unmute you before we break for lunch. So we're gonna break until 1 o'clock. Leave your computers on and everything, so you don't have to leave and rejoin. I mean, you can if you want. I'm not sure how that will go for you, but I'd just leave it on. Just, maybe switch off your video and mute your mic. Set an alarm on your phone or something to try and get back here for 5 to 1, rather than missing part of the second half of the session. So we'll break for lunch now. We'll resume at 1 o'clock, whereby Paul will take you through some interesting stuff around Facebook and how that works. And then when Paul finishes, I'll just finish off by showing you an example of how I would set up a very basic ads funnel using the content, the life cycle funnel and Facebook, and how you join all that together, so that hopefully by the end of the day, you've got a really good understanding of how content funnels work, how the life cycle funnel works, how Facebook ad funnel work, and how they all come together to just bring you more business. I've got no hands up, so that's cool. If you do need to talk to me at any point during lunch or whatever, then I'll keep checking back to see if anyone's raised their hands. Oh, I've got a hand. Steve, what's up, Steve?
Just really quickly, somebody came up with something and I missed it. In the intent section, somebody came up with a blinder, and it was it was something like why a good estate agent can save you money. It was to do with the fees and things like that. And I don't know who that person was, but
I think it was. I think it might have been Jack from Think. But Jack, if it was you or whoever it was, maybe you could just write it on the chat. I think it was. He was talking about why an estate agent why a good estate agent will make you more than they cost you. And I was saying maybe you could reword that to how to work out your actual return on investment from how much you pay your estate agent, or something like that. So, but whoever it was, if you can write it in the chat just for Steve to have a look, then that'd be really useful.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, guys, let's break for lunch. As I say, feel free to raise a hand if you need to. I'll keep checking back. Let's try and get back here for 5 to 1. I'm not at home. I'm at the office, so I've brought along a little pack of Frazzles and a banana, and I'm going to go and eat that off screen, so you don't have to sit and watch that. See you in about 50 to 55 minutes. Thanks, guys.
So for anyone who doesn't know me, thanks, Mark. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name's Paul Long. I've been involved in the property industry for around about 20 years now. My family actually own a estate agency, so that's where my passion comes for property. The last few years, I'm been a Facebook marketing strategist, where I've been helping estate agents to generate leads through Facebook, but also to understand all the powerful data that Facebook does now have, which is available to you to use, and try and help agents to understand that data. And my main aim is to generate as many leads as possible and new business for agents. And now work with hundreds of agents across the UK, generating lots of leads. And as Mark said, one of the luxury things I do have is the fact that I'm seeing what's working with lots of agents, and that's what I'm going to try and share with you today and give you some sort of value. So let's have a look at some of the things that we're going to be looking at, so you can get an idea exactly what we're going to look at. So we're going to look at Facebook foundations, why Facebook, and the type of data that's available to you as agents in Facebook. The campaign structure, how to properly structure your campaigns. The different Facebook objectives available to you, which ones to use and when. And I'm also going to show you how to upload important lists into Facebook, but also show you how Lifecycle can help you do this as well. And then at the end, together, we're actually going to jump into Ads Manager. We're actually going to build some basic adverts together, get you an idea of where things are, what you should be using, and we're going to look at sort of 2 or 3 examples. Obviously, you're all at different levels, so we'll try and cover as much as we can. We've got an hour and a bit. Obviously, there's only so much we can cover in that period of time. So at the end, if there's any questions, we'll run through them. But bear in mind, so you're all at different levels, and we'll cover what we can today. So let's have a look at why Facebook and the type of data that's available to you as agents. Why you should be using Facebook for your adverts, and to really build some good data into your funnel or into Lifecycle, depending what you're using. So the best way to look at this is probably to compare it against the pull tools, because a lot of us obviously are using pull tools. And the thing that we need to understand is Facebook is different. It's a discovery platform. So when you are putting your posts or your adverts or your videos on Facebook, you are getting in front of people in a much earlier stage, so a lot further up the stream. And because of that reason, Facebook is a discovery platform, there's a lot of powerful data that Facebook holds. So it's looking at a lot of things that you're doing on the platform, but it is data where people are a lot earlier in the process, and also you are disrupting people on the platform. So you've really got to take into consideration, unlike the pull tools where people go on knowing the price, the rent, the location, what they're looking for. These people are earlier in the journey, but also you are getting in front of them, disrupting their time on Facebook. But because it is a discovery platform and it's looking at everything you're doing, the algorithm, which is the brain of Facebook, all the data that it holds, they say that the algorithm is now so powerful it's able to predict the buying habits of people about 4 to 6 months in advance, even before they know it or even before you know it. And you're probably wondering, how does Facebook do this? How can it work out what people are doing a good few months before they do something? Well, this is some of the ways that Facebook's obtaining all this information. It's looking at the websites you visit, and this is something which a Lifecycle looks at. It's looking at the websites you're visiting by using pixel data. So most websites now have a Facebook pixel on them, and that's where the website owner can retarget people that have been on their website with adverts on Facebook. But Facebook's using that information as well. It's looking at the websites you're going on, it's looking at the buttons you're clicking, how long you're spending on that website. It's looking at Messenger. A lot of people are surprised when I tell them that it's looking at the keywords you're typing into Messenger. So for example, if you type in, I'm viewing 3 properties to rent in London at the weekend, there's a good chance Facebook will pick up on those keywords and put you into some interests, which we'll look at in a second. Apps you're downloading. So if you're downloading apps from adverts or posts in Facebook, or when Facebook's open, it's looking at those. Pages you're liking. So, all the different pages you like. GPS, where you're visiting, the check-ins. Videos you're watching on Facebook as well. Facebook will look at the titles, the length of the video you're watching, of that video. And Instagram and all the other platforms such as Messenger and WhatsApp, Facebook is obtaining data from that as well. So lots of data being fed into Facebook. And the reason I'm telling you this is because when you get an idea of what the data is that's available on Facebook and the type of data it is that the great news, all this data is available to you. You can just target on Facebook by location, by dropping a pin and setting the age. And something like Life Cycle will help you really control that data, where if we don't use something like Life Cycle, then we are going to struggle to do that. We're going to have to set up lots of audiences to retarget. But the great news, this data is available to you, where Facebook will provide you lots of interests and behavioural data that we can use when targeting people on Facebook. And you now have the ability to get in front of people a lot earlier in the journey by using these interests and behavioural options in Ads Manager, which we'll run through in a second. And you have the ability to speak to these people before your competition does, and use, as we said, a product like Life Cycle to control and track where they are actually in the funnel, and make it even easier for you to follow on through that funnel. So, and this is one of the things, you know, why is so many agents doing Facebook advertising wrong? Well, what they are doing is that they're putting adverts out there on Facebook, perhaps just dropping a pin, or perhaps even just boosting. So perhaps that's something you're doing at the moment, where you're boosting your posts. But what they're not doing is they're not getting back in front of those people afterwards. So rather than just hitting people once for the first time, we need to be using Facebook to stay in front of anyone who's shown interest in your adverts or content. And again, something like Life Cycle is going to make this a lot easier, as Mark ran through this morning. And most agents are currently just advertising and showing their adverts and their content once to someone, and they're not getting back in front of that person. And I'm not going to go too in depth in that, because I think from this morning you've got a good idea, you know, how that now works, hopefully. So these are some of the interests that are available to you in Facebook, and people fall into these interests. And again, we will go into the back part of Facebook in a second, but we could do a whole session on targeting. But this is just some of the interests that Facebook does provide for sellers and landlords. So for landlords, you know, you've got loads, and this is just a snapshot of a few that we use. And again, you know, if you're using an article which is just for showing awareness and intent, then you might not use these interests. But these are available, and these can help for certain adverts that we put on Facebook. And people get pulled into these depending on the actions that they take. So, you know, we mentioned all the places Facebook gets its data from. They will get pulled into one of these interests. So there are a landlord that's going on an investment website, they might get pulled into investment property experts, for example. Or if they've shown interest in a letting agent's Facebook page, they might get pulled into an interest of letting agent. So there's lots of interest and behavioural actions that we can target in Facebook, and these are some of them for landlords. And then what you'll see here, here's some that we can actually target for buyers and sellers. So we can drop a pin, and we can, if we're in a very large area, we can try and get in front of the right people quicker, perhaps a little bit further down the journey. And we can hit people perhaps who've been on a mortgage calculator, or perhaps they've been on a website about moving. Again, Facebook is tracking all your actions, and they'll put them into these interests which you can use. And these are called cold core interest targeting. So there's going to be lots of strange words that I'll be firing at you during this session. But this is people that don't really know you still. So don't think because we're putting interests in here that they know you at this stage. It is still people who perhaps don't know you or your brand. It's just hopefully increasing the chance of you getting in front of the right people earlier on. And these are the behavioural targeting that we can use also. So you can see here that we can actually get in front of people that are newly engaged, people that are newlyweds, people that have had children recently. And these are very powerful for estate agents, because obviously these are the sort of things which you know, happen in our lifetime, which often result in a move. So I think some of these, such as getting married, getting engaged, you know, children at certain ages, perhaps preschool, or perhaps when they've just had children, often people feel that they need to move because of schools, because of children, or perhaps they need more space. So as I said, when using detailed targeting in Ads Manager, you are talking to people who most likely do not know who you are, okay? Core audiences, which I just showed you there, cold detailed targeting, are there to feed custom audiences. And this is something that Life Cycle will help you with. And if you're wondering what a custom audience is. This is the audiences which we can get back in front of where they've shown interest in us in some way, and that might be going to the article or blog article and being pixeled, which means that they've been picked up. Or it might be that they clicked on your advert and went through to watch a video. So bear in mind that when we mentioned core audiences, cold detail targeting, we're talking about getting in front of new people, and by their actions, they will get pulled into a custom audience. So try and remember those two, but we'll go through those again in a second. And you should be looking at your Facebook advertising in the following ways. And this is where I think Lifecycle really comes in well with this. You need to build your data, control your data, and then market back to your data. Something that was pointed out to me, which I think is a great way of looking at advertising on Facebook and controlling your data, is go through the process of attention, influence, then leads and money. So obviously with the attention, we're getting in front of people at the first time, the awareness stage, or the interest stage. Influence is getting back to them with the right content, which is obviously what Mark was discussing this morning. And then we can start really going for the leads and the money later on. So let's dive into some parts of Facebook. Let's show you some things to bear in mind when you're creating your adverts. And as I say, some of you might be using Lifecycle, some of you might not. But let's show you the Facebook objectives, and we'll dive into Facebook in a second. So with your Facebook objectives, and let's just show you what that looks like in Facebook. And I'll go back to that slide. I just want to show you exactly the Facebook objectives that are available when you're in Facebook, and we will go through this process in a second. But let's try and get you familiar with the Facebook objectives. So as an estate agent or letting agent, there are 5 objectives you should really focus on, okay? And this is the end goal, what you want Facebook to achieve for you. And these are traffic, conversions, and lead generation, and then video views and engagement. So traffic conversions and lead generation, these are all used for direct response. So this is when we want to get people to take an action. So I'll give you an example. If you've got an article or a blog article, we'd use traffic because we actually want them to do something. We want them to go from Facebook, click on the button to read your article, come off Facebook and go to the content on your website. So those 3 above are direct response, and we're going to go through all of them in a second. Video views and engagement, these are known as support campaigns, and these provide the ability to build data and audiences. So for example, engagement will normally be used to get people to comment, like and share, so put a social proof on your posts. So that's like all the hearts and the likes and the comments you see. And video views, normally when people use that on Facebook, it will be to get people to watch the video, really to get to know who you are and what you're about, and then give you the ability to retarget those people, perhaps with direct response campaigns. For example, putting an e-guide in front of them. So these are the Facebook objectives which are available to you when you head into Facebook, and the ones which we just spoke about. So obviously traffic here, and traffic is, I'm going to run through these with you again. So traffic you would use for perhaps if you want to send someone from Facebook to a landing page. So that might be just an open bit of content. So that might be a blog article or some sort of maybe even a property. You can use it in other ways, but that's the main thing when you want to send people from Facebook to a landing page of your website. Engagement, the one underneath. This one's here if you want to really get comments, likes, and shares on your post. So all you're asking people to do is to like it, comment, or share it, and it's going to put you in front of people who are most likely to do that. So let's give you an example. If you had an announcement in the office, perhaps someone got an award, then you might just put a post on with that person, and you would ideally get it sort of shared. People would give it love, likes, and comment on it. A competition would be another example where you could use engagement. Again, no actual direct response. You're not asking them to leave Facebook or take an action. Pretty much you just want them to see it and like it and share it and comment on it. Normally we don't get involved with app installs. Video views, as I said, often used if you've got a video and you just want people to watch it and not really take any more action. Sometimes we will use video views. Maybe for the life cycle product, you might use traffic. So we want to send people to the product, but we'll talk about that in a second. And lead generation is one which a lot of agents in America use, and real estate, where we can gate content, and it's another option if you have got an e-guide or content you want to use in exchange for their details, so their name, number, email address. And then down the bottom here, we've got messages. And messages is really there to start conversation. So if you've ever seen an advert where you click the button on the post and it pulls you into Messenger to start a conversation, that's what they're doing. They're using the Messenger objective, and it's there to drive people into Messenger and start conversations. A couple of others just to be aware of. So we don't normally use app installs. We're not really using as estate agents catalogue sales or store visits. The only other ones to be aware of really are conversions. Conversions sometimes used, but very rarely used by agents. Some online valuation tools will use that conversions, where we can tell Facebook what the conversion event is. So, for example, the end page of the online valuation tool where they get the results, we can say to Facebook, that's the important event. When people get there, that's a lead. And Facebook will actually go after people who are most likely to take that conversion event and turn into a lead. So quite powerful, quite tricky to set up, and therefore it's not used that often, but it's definitely something to be aware of. As I say, mainly online valuation tools will sometimes use that. And then on the left-hand side, we've got these two under awareness. We've got brand awareness and reach. And what I can tell you about these two is that these ones don't really optimize they don't use all the powerful data that Facebook's got as much. So they're not optimizing to try and get in front of people who are most likely to take the actions that I've just run through with you. So as I say, with traffic, Facebook's actually putting you in front of people who are most likely to click. With engagement, it's trying to find people in that audience who are most likely to comment, like, and share. But with these two, really, it's just about putting you in front of as many eyeballs as possible in that audience. So reach, sometimes we use reach for very small audiences where Facebook struggles to push adverts out to it. Reach can be quite handy for that because it's going to try and get in front of many eyeballs. The reason why I wouldn't suggest you use these two all the time, even though they sound great, get in front of everyone, is because we don't have massive budgets. We really want to make sure that any sort of money we are spending, Facebook is optimizing and trying to get us in front of the people who are most likely to take the outcome that we're looking for. So hopefully it gives you an idea of some of the objectives. We're going to run through some in a second that I suggest you use. But when you get to the objective stage in Facebook, you really want to look at it as the end goal that you want to achieve. You know, what do you want Facebook to do for you? That's the way you want to look at it. So if you are getting confused, just keep it simple. What do you want Facebook to achieve for you? Then hopefully with the run through I've just gone through, you can work out which objective you would use on that. So let's have a look at how to structure your campaigns properly. So, you know, one of the things which people often get very confused about when setting up their adverts, and when we go into Ads Manager, you'll see that down the left-hand side, you'll have campaign, ad set, and ad. And really, this is all you need to be aware of, is that there's only 3 components to a Facebook campaign. So try not to overcomplicate it again. There's only 3 components: campaign, ad set, and ad. Campaign level is where you would choose the objective that we just ran through. So it's the expectation. So what do you want Facebook to achieve for you? Ad set level is direction and budget. So who do you want to put in? Who do you want to put it in front of? How much do you want to spend? And ad level is the creative. So is it going to be a video? Is it going to be an image or a carousel? So when we head into Ads Manager in a second, just bear in mind when we're talking about campaign or objective level, that's the expectation. Ad set level is the direction. The budget, who do you want to put in front of? How much do you want to spend? Ad level is the actual creative. Are we going to use a video, image, or a carousel? A lot of people, you know, really confuse Facebook advertising, but really, as I say, there are only 3 components to a Facebook campaign. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the rules in Facebook, and I think you know, there's lots of things we could talk about here, but some tips to help you with your Facebook advertising is with your Facebook advertising, we need to try and get you from boosting into Ads Manager. And as I say, we could do a whole week course on Ads Manager and on Facebook advertising, but some really simple rules to jot down here, which will help you see some good results and some better results is, first of all, do not touch your adverts in the first few days. So from what I show you today, don't go, setting up your adverts and then start playing around with them after a few days. In those first couple of days, Facebook is really working out who to put your your advert in front of, who's sort of engaging with it, and who best to go after. And after around about sort of 3 days, it's gone through a learning phase and it really knows who to go after, and that's when you're really going to see your best results. If you go into your advert and start tweaking it, so perhaps you saw a spelling mistake, or you want to change some ad copy, or you don't like the image, or you think perhaps your results aren't good enough, you're going to reset the learning of your advert, and Facebook's going to have to start again, and it's really not going to help you. It sort of goes into a Frankenstein effect where it's starting and stopping and really doesn't know what it's doing. So first 3 days, don't touch your adverts. Run your adverts for at least 5 to 7 days, because the main thing is, obviously, if it's learnt what it's supposed to be doing after those 3 days, you're not really benefiting from anything if you're cutting it after 2 or 3 days. So really, minimum, I think, a week, ideally longer. You're going to benefit hugely then. But run your adverts for try and run for at least a week where possible. Make sure your images have less than 20% text on them. So what I mean here is that don't go and cover your whole image with text. Sometimes you might be putting an image on with no text, but if you put an image on that's got lots of text on it, Facebook will penalise you, and it will do it in a way that your adverts will cost you more to get in front of people, and also it will feed out to less people. So just bear in mind, when you create your image, is the text covering more than 20% of that image? You can get away with more, okay, so don't think that is a set rule, but the sort of main things to bear in mind that the more you go over that 20%, there's a good chance Facebook's going to pick up and slow that advert or campaign down. Read and understand your data, and this is something, again, we could do a whole lesson on, but I'm going to show you just a few things in Ads Manager this afternoon, which is relating to reach, frequency, impressions, and click-through rate. Those 4 will probably get you by with your adverts and allow you to see how it's performing, and is it performing correctly for you, or should you stop the advert? So running through those with you, reach is the number of individual people the advert's getting in front of, and that's why I want to show you where that is, so that you can see, is it feeding out, is it actually being shown to people, am I getting exposure? Frequency is how many times those individual people have seen the advert. So for example, if you're putting an advert out to a small audience and they've seen it 7 times, then that might be an indication you should turn that advert off. So I thought it'd be a good idea we show you where frequency is. Impressions is total number of times the advert's been shown. So different to reach, rather than individual people, it's the number of times the advert's been shown. So some of those people have seen it more than once, and some people might have seen it 3 times, but it's just the total number of times your advert's been shown. And then last of all, what we'll show you is the click-through rate, which is how many people are clicking on the advert after seeing it. And you get a percentage, and we'll guide you on that, what percentage you should be seeing. And that's a good indication if the advert's working as well. Like I said, we can go really in depth on this. I don't want to confuse you all too much, but take away those 3 data points. They're going to help you with your adverts when you're running them. Okay, so what we'll do actually, we'll just have I'm just going to dive into Ads Manager, because I just want to show you a few of those things we've just run through, then we'll run back to the slides. So let me just head into Ads Manager. And if you've not been in Ads Manager before, and you've been boosting, the way you'll get into it, so let's give you a bit of guidance there, is from your Facebook page. You need to be an admin of the Facebook page. So, if you're not admin, you're not going to see these options. So the person who actually owns or created that page initially is going to have to make you an admin. If you are admin, you get into it 2 ways. Let's get rid of Mark's message. We can click up the top here where the little arrow is, and we can go into manage ads. If it's the first time you've been in, you might not get that option, and you have to click create and click add here, and that will get you into it as well. But arrow up the top here into manage ads, and that's going to take you into the back part of Facebook, which looks like this. This is a dummy account which I'm going to use. If you're in here for the first time, you won't get all these accounts or campaigns that have been running. So each of these are adverts that have been run in the past. If you've been boosting, you might see some of those here. But when you create your first advert, what you're going to do is you're going to hit the green create button here. And this is going to take us to where those objectives were. So you remember I showed you all the different objectives that you could choose here. They are all here. Down the left is the different components of Facebook. Do you remember I said campaign level, ad set level, and advert? And the way Facebook will work is that it will take you through those 3 stages, and you'll get nice little ticks to say you've completed those. So that's why I wanted to show you that. This is where you can choose all of your objectives. Now, before we build a campaign, let's show you, just going back to the beginning again, just want to show you where we talked about data. So I said to you that when your campaigns have been running, you're going to be able to see data. This is where the data shows. So in Ads Manager, you've got all of the columns here that show you loads of data. It looks really confusing. But the ones that we want to look at, if you remember, was 4 of them. And we can get to those 4. We can see some of them here without even changing anything. So you can see here, here's the reach. So that's the individual people. So when your adverts are going to be running, you'll be able to see the individual people it's feeding out to. What we need to do, though, to see the rest of those 4 data points is that we can come to here. It says columns. And on the drop down, we can go into performance and clicks. And you're now going to see those 4 data points that I suggested you keep an eye on if you are running adverts. So in here, we can see frequency. So how many times people have seen our adverts, the reach, individual people that have seen, so individual people that have seen the advert, and then impressions. Do you remember we said that's the total number of the adverts being shown? And then the last one, the click-through rate. And with the click-through rate, that's how many people are clicking on our advert after seeing it in a percentage amount. And we can see there we've got 3%. So it's link click-through rate. So it's how many people clicking on your link after seeing the advert. And as a guide for you, if you jot this down, you're looking at normally around about 1% on a cold audience, which means getting in front of people for the first time. 3% for warm audiences. These are sort of industry guides. That will give you an idea if your advert is working, and you can then see if you need to tweak anything. Loads more data there, but I'm not going to run for any more because I'm sure that's going to be too much anyway. But remember those 4. That's going to help you later on. So let's have a look at generating some campaigns, and last of all we will look at uploading some data into Facebook. So if we just go back to the slides, I'm just going to show you what we're going to look at here. These are the adverts that we're going to try and look together, try and help you understand the different adverts that we can create in Facebook. So the first one we're going to look at is a Facebook advert to promote an article created within Lifecycle, or perhaps on your blog or your website. So let's say we've got an article on our website, or we've got an article in Lifecycle, and we want to get it in front of new people using Facebook, and we want to drive traffic and people into our funnel. We want to hit people at the awareness and the interest stage. So in Facebook, let's just get ourselves back into Facebook. We're going to hit this green create button. So when you first go into Ads Manager, you're going to be seeing this green create button, and this is going to give us the objectives that we can choose. And the one which we're going to use is going to be traffic. So if you've got an article on your blog or in Lifecycle and you want to drive traffic to it, simple, we're going to use traffic. So we click on traffic, and then we're going to scroll down to here. And then we get a load of unusual messages showing. And we're just going to make sure at the moment this is turned off. So it says create an A/B test or campaign budget optimization. We're just going to make sure those are turned off. That's something we can teach you at another stage. But at the moment, we just want to make sure that we give the campaign a name. So you can see here, I can actually give this campaign a name. It'll already put traffic in for us. And the reason we want to name our campaigns is so that when we look at our data later on, it's really easy for us to work out, you know, what type of objective we used and what it was for. So on this one, I'm just going to put in here landlord article. And this could be anything that we could be using. We could be using an article about a restaurant. It could be an article about a school. But we're actually going to go with a landlord article. Here, so I'm just going to put landlord article to remind me what it was. I'm just going to put 5 tips, so that reminds me. And at the end, we're just going to put cold. And the reason I do that, it just reminds me who we're putting this in front of. So you can name your campaign any way you want, but the way I do it is I put the objective at the beginning. I then put the something to remind me of what we're promoting, and then I would put cold to remind me of the audience. You could have warm there if we were retargeting people further down the funnel. Perhaps they've you know, they've read our articles before, perhaps they've been on our website before. Then we would put warm at the end because obviously we're retargeting people. So once we put cold in, we're going to click continue. And the first thing Facebook has done up here, do you remember on the campaign, which was the objective, you know, what do we want to achieve? We've got 2 ticks on that, and we've moved out of there. We're now into ad set level. And this is the direction of the campaign. You know, who do we want to put it in front of? How much do we want to spend? So on here, the first thing Facebook's going to say is, where do you want to send those people? And we want to send them to a website, a landing page. The traffic needs to come from Facebook to a website. You can see some other options there, which we're going to ignore. You have now got WhatsApp, which is really interesting, you know, for all the WhatsApp users. But we're going to send people to a website, a landing page, where our article is, the exact page where our article is, be it that on Lifecycle or on your website. We're then going to scroll down. We're going to leave these bits. We're not going to touch dynamic creative or offer. We're going to come down to here where we can put an audience in. And do you remember we talked about where we could drop interests into Facebook? If we wanted to, we'll find those here where it says detailed targeting. We can start putting interests in here. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to move to locations. So ignore custom audiences at the moment. We'll run through those in a second after we've created this campaign. We're just going to go straight into location, and we're going to tell Facebook where we want to show this advert to, who do we want to show it to, and where they must live. So here we're going to change the drop down on location to people living in this location. And this means that Facebook's going to show your advert to people who actually live where you drop the pin. So if we left it on any of the others, so living or recently in this location, that one, for example, the top one, that would include people driving through, working there on the day, and then going home elsewhere. Where living, Facebook actually knows that they actually live in that location. So just make sure the drop down location is put on living in this location. We're then going to take away United Kingdom. So we can just remove United Kingdom. And we can, in this little box here, we can do this in different ways, but I tend to put a location in. So I'll probably put our office location in. And Facebook will then drop a pin for us. And at the moment, anywhere blue is going to see the advert. So anyone living in this blue circle, which is 10 miles at the moment, are going to see our advert. And obviously we want to try and bring that down. And by doing what we did, we can now bring it down to 1 mile if we want to. So you can start working out, you know, where do I want my advert to show? What's our patch? And perhaps it's 4 miles from your office. We can put 4 miles in, and those people are going to start seeing the advert. Once we've done that, we do have options to exclude locations, but I'm not going to go into that today. You can drop additional pins as well. So I could drop a pin here, for example. Perhaps we have an office that covers over here as well, and we feel that article would work well for that, or perhaps you've got a different location you cover. You can drop additional pins. So I could drop one there, and then I could bring that down in size. So you can see that I've now got 2 locations that the advert will show. So you don't have to stick to one pin or one location. But let's take that one out. Okay. And then down here, what we can do is we can start putting ages in, and perhaps you know that your buyers, your sellers, your landlords are certain ages. You know, you don't want to go too zoned in, but I'm sure you probably know what your seller's age is mainly. You can use obviously the content of the article, so the headlines in your actual advert to call out to the right people. But I'm sure for most of us, you know, buyers are probably in their 20s, late 20s in most cases. So we're just going to put on this one, for example, mid-20s. Actually, in this case, I'm going to do an example for a landlord advert, as I mentioned. So most of our landlords are sort of 30 upwards. So I'm actually going to put 30 to 65 in here. So our advert's only going to show to people in this radius who are between the ages of 30 and 65. We can see here that we can select gender if we want to. I wouldn't actually touch that. The algorithm of Facebook is very clever in working out who best to show your adverts to. So leave the gender on all. And unless you're looking at the data later on, wouldn't really start to tighten things up until you really know who's engaging with your adverts. But in most cases, just leave it on all. Leave languages. We don't really need to get into that unless, again, you're in an unusual market. Then you might use that feature, and you can enter a language to show your ads to people who use a language that is common to your location. So you've got that option there if you ever wanted to use that. Then we can come down to here. Now, this is the detailed targeting. This is where I showed you those interests, you know, relating to things like moving, mortgage calculator for sellers, and for landlords there were things like buy-to-let, property investments. We can put them in here. If you don't want to do that and you're using Lifecycle, then Lifecycle is probably going to work out, you know, later on who, you know, you could probably leave the interests out, and you could probably put articles out in your local town, and Lifecycle would probably do the heavy lifting and work out you know, who they are and what they are. But for us, anyone else who's not using Lifecycle, you probably want to increase your chances of getting in front of the right people. And we could start putting interests in, such as property investment. I'm not going to put these all in because there's loads, but you can see as soon as I put property investment in, we've got a load of suggestions coming up straight away. Property investment, property investing, property investment club, anything that's very landlord directed is going to start showing up. So if I put property investment in, hit the suggestion button, we can start really sort of giving Facebook a good idea of who we're going after. And things like, for example, property tax, that would be a good one for landlords. Often they have interests in property tax. We can put things in like buy to let. So there's loads in there that you can use. As I say, there's a list, a big list of those, but put a few in and hit the suggestion. But you really want to be aiming at the ones where there's not really a chance that a landlord won't be in that interest. So I'll give you an example. If we put property finder in, that could include just buyers looking for property. So in this case, we want to hit landlords. So we're going to make sure we're using the interests which landlords would fall into. So loads that you can start looking into. If you remember, there was also property investment calculator. Reinvestment trust. So there's loads which you can run through. I'm not going to go through them all today. If we wanted to, we could exclude people. So these are all and or ors. So they only have to fall into one of these. We can exclude people here, and this is something I'll run through a little bit more on the advert that we'll create for retargeting, getting back in front of people. But this is where you would exclude people. You can start excluding people here, and also we can do it at a custom audience level. But let's not get too involved at the moment. Let's just show you how to get in front of people the first time. So we're just going to scroll on here. We're going to leave this bit as it is. If you wanted to, you can save the audience at this stage. So if you've created a really good audience that you'd like to use later on for a future blog, we can hit the Save This Audience button. We can give this a name, and then we can actually find this saved audience later on. And the place that you'd find it would be up the top here, where it says Used Saved Audience, and you'll find your saved audience. So that's quite handy because you know you've got an audience that's working well, which you know, getting in front of new people, you can save it and use it later on for other articles. So we're going to continue scrolling down here. We're going to leave this as it is, and then we get to placements. So you can see we're still in ad set level. This is where we can tell Facebook, where do we want the advert to show? And, there's loads of placements. Facebook owns, Instagram, it owns stories, it owns WhatsApp. It's got the news feed, it's got the mobile news feed. It can even show your adverts on other network platforms like the Daily Mail or the Sun, where they actually take out advertising space. So that is all included. In fact, if we click on the manual placements here, we can see all of the locations that your advert can show. You can see there's loads there. Makes it really difficult for you to choose where to show it. In the last couple of years, Facebook's got really good at looking after this for you. So I would recommend you keep this on automatic placements. And Facebook will do the heavy lifting for you. It will see where your adverts are getting the most engagement and responses, and it will start spending the money in that direction and on that placement. If you want to actually do a campaign, perhaps which is just for stories, then you would head in here and you start unticking the different placements. But I would always recommend, unless you have the data, again, you stick to automatic placements and let Facebook decide where your advert shows, and it will. It does it very well. We'll do the heavy lifting. It will put you in the best places for you. As we come down to here, the last bit of ad set level, you can see that Facebook is asking you, what do you want to optimize for? And it should at this point say landing page views. And that means that Facebook's actually going to optimize and find people in that audience who are most likely to click, but also they're most likely to go to your landing page and have a look at it and wait for it to load up. That's how clever Facebook is. It's optimizing for, to find people who tend to come off Facebook and they're quite happy to look at your article and stay there for a little while to wait for the page to load up. There are other options here, but don't get confused with it. You've got link clicks, daily reach, impressions. The only difference between link clicks is that it will just put you in front of people who are most likely to click on your advert, but it could be anywhere on the advert. It could be your logo, it could be on the comments, it could be just to see a comment someone made. So we want landing page views on this. Now we're at budget, and for you can spend as much as little as you want. There's two ways to spend your money on Facebook. We can do it on a daily budget or a lifetime budget. Now the difference is on both of them we can still give a start and end date. So don't worry, on a daily budget it's not going to go on and on and on. But on a daily budget we can say to Facebook, for example, there's £4. You've got £4 each day to spend it all, but that's all I want you to spend. So Facebook will spend that £4, and you will see more of a consistent daily results. If we do a lifetime budget, we might, for example, say to Facebook, there's £100 for 1 week. We set the start and end date, and Facebook might, in the first couple of days, spend nearly all of that money. If it sees the opportunities, it might spend all of that money, then spend nothing much for 4 days, and on the last day spends a little bit more. So your results can go up and down. So there's no right or wrong. I tend to work with daily budgets more, just because I like to see that we get consistent results. So people clicking on the advert, going to our website page, but you might prefer just giving Facebook a lifetime budget and say that's it, and you feel more comfortable with that. But I'm going to leave that on a daily budget. And then we can obviously put start and end date in. I do recommend you do that, especially if you're not in Ads Manager a lot. If you want to run this ongoing, then you'd leave it on Run My Ad Set continuously, starting today. But we're going to set a start and end date and tell Facebook to start the advert today on the calendar, and then we're going to say to Facebook, I want it to end in a week's time. So we can put that into the calendar there, start and end. And that means that on the 30th of this month, Facebook will stop spending money. So if you put a start and end date in, you won't have to worry about Facebook continuously spending money afterwards. The message is there just because I've been waffling on too long, so it's gone past the time. So we'll just ignore that. Let's just put that ahead because it keeps Facebook happy. Get rid of that, and you can see there it says your ads will run for 7 days. Your you'll spend no more, and then you've got the amount there. So you can be comfortable knowing that your advert's going to stop after spending that amount and for 7 days. At the bottom here, just ignore these bits. Don't get involved with these. You know, these are more advanced techniques. And we're going to click continue, and we're going to move out of ad set level, which is again was the direction of the advert. We're now moving into ad level, which is the advert, the creative. You know, how's it going to look? What pages are we going to be using against the advert? What, are we using an image? Are we using a video? Or are we using a post that's already on our Facebook page? So the first thing you would do here, you can give your ad set and you can give your adverts names. I should have mentioned that earlier. Main thing is to give your campaign a name. We're going to come here and we're going to make sure Facebook knows which Facebook page we want to show on this advert. So what page we want connected. So make sure it's the right page, the right business. If you're admin of more than one page, you'll have a selection here on the drop down. If you're just admin on one page, you'll just have the one. So make sure that's your agency. And if you've got an Instagram account, make sure it's connected to your Facebook account, because you will then have the option to choose your Instagram account here. If you don't have it connected or you don't have an Instagram account, Facebook will just make a dummy version, a dummy account up for you. People will be able to see your advert on Instagram, but they won't be able to follow you. So well worth connecting your Instagram account so that when your advert shows on Instagram, and that will happen on automatic placements, Facebook will show it to everyone. They will be able to follow you as well. So that's quite important. You will get followers and they can follow your account. So once we get down to here, we can tell Facebook if we want to create an advert in Ads Manager or if we want to use an existing post. And this is something to bear in mind. You know, if your post is actually on your Facebook page and you're quite happy with how it looks, perhaps Lifecycle's even generated it for you, because that's one of the benefits of Lifecycle. You can generate these posts and push them onto your page. You can actually just hit Use Existing Post, and Facebook gives you the option to select that post from your page. So we can click Select Post, and we can go ahead and we can find the post. So these are all the posts that are on our page, and we can click Continue. But obviously we'll have to make sure we put that post on our Facebook page first of all to have that option. If you do it that way, you're not going to have an option to change anything here. The only thing you can do is add a button if you want to, which is what you see here. If you're not using a post on your page, then you're going to have to create an advert within Ads Manager. And I'm just going to briefly show you how that's done. So we're in the Create Ad tab here. We've come away from using existing post, and I can now choose an image or video, collection format, or a carousel. To keep it simple, we're just going to use an image here. We're going to promote a blog article that's on our website, and we've got an image already. So we're just going to scroll down. This one here's image or video, and we're going to get to media. And with media, we can tell Facebook what image we want to use. So we're going to we can upload an image or video into Facebook, and we can actually use that image or video. So I'm going to click here, Add Image. And you'll see, hopefully in a second, it's going to load up. Facebook is being naughty. Let's have a look. Let's just refresh this. There we go. So I've already uploaded an image for our article. So this is just an image, a dummy image that I've uploaded. So I've created an image, and we simply created this in Canva very quickly. With regards to images, I highly recommend that with your images, you make them as hyper-local as possible, you know, using images that stand out in the news feed and mean something. And I also recommend you perhaps put some text on the image, keep it 20%, with the 20% rule, because the way people look at adverts is they will look at the image first, then they'll probably look at the headline, and then they'll probably move to the text. So all eyeballs are on the image or video first of all, so why not use that space to put something on there that's going to call out to the people that you're after. So in this case, we've got an article which we want landlords to read, so we're actually putting the headline on the image as well. So it's pulled my image in. This is a preview of how our advert's going to look so far. So far it's just got the the image that's been pulled in. Don't get too confused with everything that's shown here. Just move on. We could customize for all the different platforms, but just provide Facebook with one image at the moment. And the next thing you're going to come across is where we can add primary text, headline, and a description. And just to show you what that is, let's just come into here. Let's get rid of that message. When you in Ads Manager, you see primary text, headline, or description, just to show you, this is the primary text, the text and ad copy you see above the post, so the main post ad copy. This is the headline at the bottom in bold, and the description is this little bit of text here, the sort of the little second part of the headline that tells you what to do next. So the first thing we want to do is obviously fill this, and I've actually got, I'm just going to cheat here a little bit, I've actually got some text here that I'm going to use. So remember, this is for a blog article that's on our website. Let's just move that out of the way. So we're just going to paste that in there, and you're going to see how that's going to populate. So we can now see the ad copy showing above. So if you remember, I said primary text is the ad copy that's going to show above. Okay. And what we'd probably do here, you know, just give you an idea with regards to blog articles. Normally, you know, you can put all the content on the post and keep people in Facebook, but really what we want to do, that makes it very hard to identify the people that have read that post if we keep them in Facebook. That's what Facebook wants. There's various sort of ways you can try and get around that, but really what we want to try and do is get them from Facebook to our website or a blog, so that we can track them using a Facebook pixel, and that will feed into obviously the lifecycle product if we're using that, or if you're using your own Facebook pixel and it's on your blog, that will pick up with that pixel, and you can create audiences later on. So the ad copy we've used here is obviously just a little snippet of the blog article, the full blog article we're sending them to. And the idea is to get them to go from here, click on the button and go through to the blog. And you can see here we've given a bit of a taster, and we've also said click learn more to continue reading our full article. We're telling them what to do next. That's very important with any ad copy you're using. You do tell people what to do next on your ad copy. Then we've got the headline here, and on the headline, you remember it's here underneath the article. And I'm just going to take this headline here. I'm going to cheat again. So just head back in, and we're going to put the headline in here. And you can see now that we've got a headline showing at the bottom in bold. And again, you want to use something that's very hyper familiar, hyper local to those people. So in this case, the location, landlords, works really well. It's calling out to the right people. And also, as Mark said earlier, things like listicles or things which people perhaps don't want to miss out on. 5 ways City Cup landlords can be proactive. There's things, there's certain words you can use which makes people want to know what's going on. So we've tried using sort of ad copy which calls out to the right people. And then with the description, if you remember, the description is just we tend to use it for the call to action. It's not shown on all platforms. It's normally only shown on desktop. This little bit of text here doesn't normally show on mobile normally, but we put something in like click learn more now, just something simple, telling them what to do. Again, to take the next step. So it's a micro conversion. You're telling them what to do next after they've seen the main advert. So you can start seeing your advert taking shape. Where we filled in the primary text, the headline, and the description. You do have options to add multiple description and headlines, but we're not going to cover that today. That's a whole rabbit hole to go down. We're going to scroll down here. Facebook's just reminding you, are we sending this to a website again? Yes, we are. And now what we can do is, this is the website URL. This is where this button's going to go, or this is where if someone clicks on the image, where they're going to end up. So we've got on our website, on our blog, we've got the blog. Again, this could be on your website, or it could be on the Lifecycle product. which they will give you a web URL. We're just going to take that web URL, the web address, and we're going to drop it into it. It says web URL here. And now anyone who clicks on this advert on the button or on the property, they're going to end up on that blog. And if there's a pixel, Facebook pixel on that blog, it's going to obviously identify those people and put them into an audience on that. We're not going to cover display link. In most cases, you'll just leave that as it is. And then you can see here we've got options for the actual button. So this Learn More button, which we just saw a second ago, which is just loading up. You've got different options. Best to use Learn More in most cases, especially if you're using blog articles or articles. It's a low friction button. That means that people don't really worry about clicking on Learn More. If you're using buttons like sign up or get quote, those sort of buttons, they can be a bit more friction involved, and people tend not to click as much. So Learn More is fine. And then we're just going to scroll down here. We're not going to get involved with anything here. They're more advanced techniques again, which you don't need to worry about. Languages we don't need to worry about. And down here is where you can track the visitors. If you've got your Facebook pixel on your website, which I highly recommend you do before running adverts and on your blog, you can just make sure that these are turned on. So your conversion tracking's turned on here and your offline events are turned on. The conversion tracking here will mean that Facebook will be able to tell you how many people have actually clicked on the blog and gone through to it from Facebook. If this is not turned on, then you're not going to see those that information. And also, if the pixel's not on your website, Facebook's not going to be able to give you that information either. So when we get down to the bottom, you can see we've got ticks all the way through here on the ad level. Facebook is now asking us, telling us here that our ad reach may be slightly lower. If you get slightly, don't worry about it. If it says will, then do worry about it. This is where the 20% text rule comes in. You can see here, there's too much text. From experience, when it says may, you're okay. If it's just Facebook giving you a warning. If it says will be, then it means you've got too much text on your image or your post. So we can just ignore that. It's not going to stop the advert going through. We can click confirm. And what we're going to see if we click confirm is that that's going to go into review. Facebook's going to, doesn't take too long with blog articles or articles. It'd probably take anything from a few minutes to a couple of hours for that type of article. And you can see here, we've got, at the moment it says scheduled, because we put the time slightly in advance. When it goes live, this will go solid green and it will say active. And that will mean that the advert is showing. And then you can start over the next couple of days when it goes to active, it means it's spending money. You can start looking at those 4 data points that we ran through to make sure it's feeding out and it is being shown. Then you can start seeing that, how many people are seeing it, how many times it's been shown, and how it's performing. But do wait sort of, a few days on that. So that's getting out to, new people at the top of the funnel. I don't know, Mark, did you want to, do we need to run through these questions before I show the next advert?
No, it seems pretty straightforward to me. Dave from Beaumont Gibbs was just asking, I know it's a bit of a difficult question to answer in terms of like budgets. I was just saying budget is spend as much as you possibly can, but he was just saying from your point of view, because you're you run these ads regularly, what kind of daily budget would you say someone should be looking at? Yeah,
it's first of all with cold audiences, which is getting in front of new people in your town. They need a little bit more budget, and so do the lead generation budgets compared to getting back in front of people. So when you retarget people, and when we talk about retargeting, we're getting back in front of people who have shown an interest in us and are probably further down the funnel. We can spend less because Facebook rewards you. So, for example, an advert like like we've just created, you probably could do a couple of pound a day on a warm audience. Where if you're getting in front of new people, it depends how big your potential reach is. So if we just on this advert, I'm just going to jump back into where we set up the actual advert. So let's just go back to here. You'll see what Facebook does up the top right here, if everyone can see, is it shows potential reach. This is the total number of people in that audience that if you spent a load of money, you could get in front of all those people. You know, if you ran that advert for a good few months and you spent loads every day, eventually you probably get in front of all those people. The sort of guide on that by most experts is, you know, every 100,000 people, you should be spending probably around about £5. And that could change, you know, depending on other influences. But you've got to be careful. You know, the larger your audience gets, potential reach, so if it's hundreds and hundreds of thousands, you've really got to be careful then, are you spending enough money to really keep Facebook happy? Most of the time, most agents don't have audiences that size. So, you know, you're going to be quite safe spending anything between, you know, a few pounds to £5 a day. That will keep Facebook happy on those sort of audiences. And then it's just, how, you know, from that, if you want to spend more, it'll be filling up your funnel with more people. But, you know, anything from a few pound to £5 a day is going to be plenty for an audience that's, you know, well below 100,000.
Yeah, I think like from our point of view, when I first started doing Facebook ads, when I went through this process long time ago now, 10 years ago or so, like when I would put in the amount, I would find it a bit scary, like, oh, you know, I don't want Facebook to suddenly take, you know, £1,000 out of my bank account or anything like that. So you sort of tend to keep it low to start with. And I think, as you say, as you get more comfortable with it, you start to realize, actually, it's not really any different to something like when you decide how much you want to spend doing leaflets. Like if you spend £500 doing leaflets, you'll deliver far less than if you spend £2,500. So, you know, I think we've slowly sort of, you know, worked our way up to the point where we spend, you know, £50 or £100 a day on Facebook. But I don't think I would have initially just felt that comfortable just for my first ever ad, setting it up and saying, like, go for it, spend it. Although, having said that, my experience is that, you know, Facebook does a pretty good job of optimizing that. It won't necessarily spend all your money. You're just putting a limit on what it can go up to.
Yeah, and I think in the recent year, Facebook is really interested in getting new results now. You know, it was always a bit of a worry that people felt that they spend more money, they're going to lose a lot of money. But nowadays, in the last couple of years, the algorithm's got really clever of working out where your adverts are working well, and it will spend that money there. So in the past, you used to really rely on the data, and you'd have experts going, you know, testing all these different audiences, testing all these different things. It's getting a lot easier now, where you can give Facebook the money, and if you get the basics right, it will push that money in the right direction. So it makes it easier to get results now, definitely.
Yeah. Have you got a few more slides that you wanted to show, or are you okay?
Yeah, just are we all right?
Yeah. But just before you move on, I just wanted to make a point to people that when Paul was showing all of those kind of interests and demographics that you can level people down by, it's not only about, if I could just find everybody that's looked on Rightmove or Zoopla. Think of what we were talking about before. How do you make content that lands with somebody and is really relevant? So as an example, you could run a competition this week for people who have got a birthday in the month of, well, we're nearly at the end of April now, but let's just say in the month of April, if they comment on your post to say happy birthday, then you'll enter them into your competition. I know Andrew Dickinson's running a competition at the moment for tickets to Centre Parks. You'll enter them into their competition, and you can make sure that content lands in front of people that you know have got a birthday this month. You know, so you haven't got to be so random with everything. You could. The newlyweds one that Paul mentioned, if you've just got married, you know, like our page for this, or you might like this piece of content, or you might do that. And that's how you end up, you'll have all been through it. You end up seeing stuff in your Facebook feed where you go, oh, That's me. It's like, yeah, we know it was you. That's why we sent it to you. Okay, so just think about it from that perspective, as well as just the most broad aspect of, oh, everyone that was on Rightmove might like us because we're an estate agent.
Yeah, exactly. Really powerful options in Ads Manager, and that's why if people can get into Ads Manager and try and get used to it, there's so many more options than just boosting. Right, so let's just show you a couple other things which I think you should be aware of. So just going back to the slides, and something which I wanted to talk about, which is something which I think should point out Lifecycle does really well, and I'm not just saying that, it really does, is that uploading your important lists into Facebook is something that I get a lot of clients to do, and it's a really powerful thing to do. So what you can do with Facebook is you can upload your most important lists. So we can upload a CSV file of email addresses of perhaps our valuations, perhaps our applicants, perhaps our landlords, people we're talking to, and we can do this on a regular basis. And that is really powerful to get in front of those people, stay in front of them, and where possible, get the right messages in front of them. Now, the only problem with this is that doing it manually yourself is that you're going to have to do this on a regular basis. And, ideally, as much as every day would be perfect, which is probably not possible. So most clients are doing it once a week, which does mean that these aren't always up to date, totally up to date. Now, Lifecycle does do this. It will create lists and within Lifecycle, and it will automatically upload them into Facebook, which is what I've been really impressed with. So for Lifecycle people, you've got the ability to have these audiences in Facebook, which are right up to date. If someone had a valuation yesterday or today, they're going to be in the audience of people who've had valuations, where everyone else, you're going to have to upload your list as a CSV file. And I'm going to show you how to do this. So you've got that option, and it's going to give everyone value. But also you can see the process that's involved to do that. So before, for people that haven't got Lifecycle, you would have to export a CSV file of email addresses, minimum email addresses, out of your sales or letting system. That's quite simple. You can export normally a couple of clicks, all your valuations, all your applicants, but you will have to export them individually, and you'll have to put them on your desktop so we can get them into Facebook. So I thought I'd show you the process of doing that, so some of you can think about if it's something you want to do. So let's go into Ads Manager again. So we're in the let's just go to campaign level so you know where we're at. So we've hit manage ads. We've gone into the back part of Facebook, and we're going to head up here where the three dots are, 3 lines are. And one of the things we can do is we can click on here, audiences. Now, some of you will probably be looking at your Ads Manager right now, if you're looking at it as well, and thinking this looks different. Ads Manager has hundreds of versions running at any one time. They're fairly similar. I'm on the modern version. If you clicked on the 3 lines up here, and the menu opens all the way up across your screen, audiences is probably going to be around about here in the middle. But you need to find audiences. And when you click on audiences, this is going to take us to where we can upload data into Facebook and create something called custom audiences. So custom audience is data that we already own, or data we've already created, be it someone's been on our website, watched a video, or we've got a list that we can give Facebook. So we can click on create audience here. We can click on custom audience, this blue box here, and click on custom audience. And what you will see in a second is that a box will open. It's been a bit slow. Didn't like that. Let's try again. I thought it had all gone too smoothly. Let me just refresh. There we go. So the box will open like this. This is all the custom audiences that you can actually create. And the one that we want to hit is customer lists. Create an audience using existing customer information. Data will be hashed before uploading, and we won't store it afterwards. So I know a lot of the time agents worry about complying with various regulations. There's part of it there which will cover you to some degree. So we're going to hit on customer list. First thing Facebook will do, it will tell you how it would like the data. Now all you need to do is create a CSV file where it's got a column of emails, it's got a column of names, it's got a column of perhaps postcodes. They just need to be in a column, and you can't upload too much data into Facebook, because you can say what you don't want to include when you're uploading. So you can do a do not upload in a second. So Facebook's going to show us a snapshot in a second of our CSV file. So we're going to click next here. It's going to ask us, does your list include a column for customer value? We're going to say no to that. If you're wondering what that is, it's just if we knew how much everyone was spending, we could actually tell Facebook there's a column in there that tells Facebook, you know, who our best customers are. But we're going to ignore that and click no and click next. Then Facebook's going to ask us to find that CSV file. So we can click upload file here. And you'll see that I've got one here that we can use. Let's go to desktop. We'll do this one. So we found the CSV file on our desktop. You give your audience a good name. So let's say in this case, let's just say this is valuations. And we'd give it a date. So let's just make a date up for this, just so we know when we last uploaded it. I'm going to click next. And Facebook's going to give you a snapshot of each column. So these are pretty much Facebook saying, hey, Paul, these are mobile numbers. Is that correct? And it's put phone. It's already identified it's a phone number. Hey, Paul, these are email addresses. Is that correct? Yes, it is. But you can see here, action required 38. This is where Facebook's not been able to work out what these are. Now, remember, it's only a snapshot. It's not all my data in these columns, just showing a snapshot and Facebook asking, you know, what is it? A lot of these we won't use. So you can see, you just leave them, do not upload. None of these are any good. Minimum email addresses. So I could have just said upload with that email address that is found. But if I want to, for example, this is the full address, I could say to Facebook, you know, this is postcode. And even though it was the full address, it will still work out what the postcode is. Is that clever? I could scroll down here, see if there's anything else, and perhaps I think there's nothing else I want to use. So it's only mapped 3 columns, and I'm going to upload and create. Now, it's best to give it sort of a few data points if possible. So perhaps, you know, mobile, email, and postcode. Then Facebook can work out, you know, find those people on Facebook. If it can't find them by the email, then it will revert to the mobile number. And this is the data that you've given Facebook when you signed up. So when you sign up to Facebook, you normally give it an email, phone number, and I think it even asks the address now as well. So it's found, got to give us a nice tick. 468 rows uploaded. Ignore these. We're not going to go into these today. These are, again, more powerful things you can do. We're going to click done. And now we've got an audience here that we can show adverts to and retarget. So we can actually use this audience, but also we can exclude, if we uploaded other audiences, we can exclude and include those in adverts. Now, the problem is you've got to do that process quite a few times. So again, bear in mind that you know, you'd have to put time aside to upload all the audiences that you want and keep them up to date. Where something like Lifecycle will do it on a you know, daily basis and dynamic basis, where as soon as it changes in the product, the audiences will change as well. So really, really handy. So let's just show you last of all how you could use that, because you're probably, some of you thinking, well, how would I use that? I'm just going to head into Ads Manager. Just thinking about it. Let's go back into Ads Manager from fresh. Sometimes Facebook does have a bit of a paddy where when you've been in it for a long period of time, it likes to slow right down. So we're just jumping back straight into it now. Take 2 seconds. So let's just go to that account. And let's finally just show you, I think this would be a good one to end on, which will be how to use custom audiences, how to actually get in front of people who we've uploaded into Facebook, or even it might be an audience of people who've been on our website or on our blog. So we're going to hit the create button, and I'm just going to dive straight into the ad set level again, because I don't want to go through the whole process of setting up the advert again. But if you remember at ad set level, which was the direction, you know, before we were using all of this, we were putting the detailed targeting, so it was the interests, such as, you know, buy to let, property investment. This is where we can start dropping those custom audiences in. So we could drop that one we just created in a second ago, the valuations one in, and our advert would now only show to these people that are in that audience. And we could literally just ignore everything else here, as long as they jump through the hoop to get in here, which was our list that we gave to Facebook. We want the advert to show, because we know they're people we want to get back in front of. Now, what you can do is, if you've got lots of custom audiences, and you can be quite clever, you can start excluding as well. So we could exclude audiences. And again, when you're using something like Lifecycle, it does make it very easy, because what we can do, and this is just a dummy version, we could use Facebook to get in front of everyone who was in the first part of the funnel, which was awareness and interest. So we might have something we want to put back to those people who've got into those audiences from actually reading our blog or article, or whatever we put in front of them at the top of the funnel. And then what we could do is we could exclude people who are further down the funnel, intent and evaluation. So we don't want people seeing the same content that people are seeing at awareness and interest stage. We want to exclude those people. That's where it can get really handy. And as I say, I don't want to go too much into this, but you can start seeing how it can really become quite helpful on that. I don't know, Mark, if there's anything else you wanted to mention on those audiences at all?
No, I think that's a really good point that you make there, because, you know, you've covered so much stuff there for people, which is really great. And I think people can sometimes, as I said at the beginning, they can get a bit overwhelmed with the whole thing. But on a very basic level, think about that funnel that we looked at this morning, and everybody going through all the different stages. Now, if Paul was to set up this ad to say, show this article, show this blog post to anyone at the stage of awareness and interest, then there's potential that there could be some people in there that have gone on further than that, and they're now down, they've had a valuation off of you. So using the exclude option is really quite useful. People shouldn't look at this as like, oh, this was my training session, now I'm supposed to go off and be able to use Facebook Ads Manager like a ninja. Obviously, like I say, I'm recording the session, so you'll be able to go back and look at it again piece by piece if you need to. And it's just important for you to understand the power that Facebook has got. You know, you don't have to know every single thing inside your business so that you can do it yourself. You don't need to know how to build a website to know that you want a website. You know, you don't have to know how to plaster a wall to know that you need a wall plastered. So there's people out there like Paul, and there's some other people that we work with that they can do this stuff for you. It's just good that you have an understanding of the incredible power at your fingertips inside Facebook. I've got a couple of bits that I want to show you guys. So, Paul, would you say that kind of wraps up your session?
Yeah, I think it's a good place to start, because as you say, we don't want to keep going on and showing you everything today. It's just to really give you some sort of guidelines on how to use Ads Manager, how to get an article out, and sort of things to consider as well. So hopefully that's helped everyone, but glad to answer any questions that people might have.
Yeah, I mean, does anyone want to put their hand up and ask a specific question before I carry on? I know that someone was asking in the chat about how do you get an ad to show at a specific time of the day, and we did answer that in the chat, but I think it's a good point as well to make that Facebook is really good at figuring out what the best time of day is, rather than you thinking, oh, I think the best time of day would be between 7 and 8. Facebook is spending £100 million a year trying to figure that stuff out for themselves.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, people were saying, you've got to show your ads at this time, you've got to post at this time. But literally in the last couple of years, the algorithm is doing a lot of the heavy lifting now. So it will, in the first 3 days, it will work out who's actually engaging with your advert and at what time they're engaging with it. And then it's going to start showing your adverts at that time more, spend money on that platform more. So don't get too tied up in setting times for your adverts to show. Just let the algorithm choose that. As I say, things have just improved so much recently.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Okay, Paul. Right, feel free, obviously, to stay for the last part of the session. I'm just going to mute you again. Hold on a sec. Where are you, Paul? There you are. Mute. Okay. Oh, actually, let me just unmute you because I've got a question from Paul Mundy here. Hold on a sec. So, why is that? Paul, can you hear me? Paul, as in Paul Mundy, can you hear me? I'm not sure your mic is working at the moment. Maybe if you want to leave a question in the chat, then hopefully we can cover it. Okay, so let me just have a quick look. Something's flashing on my screen up here in terms of the chat. So, okay, all good. Right. Okay, guys. So we have covered off how content works. You guys have got a good understanding of content marketing and how content marketing funnel works in terms of you staying on top of your schedule and always being relevant for people. We've now got a good idea of how Facebook can put the right content in front of the right people. But where's the piece in between? So what I wanted to look at with you guys was just an example of a very basic Facebook ad funnel. How you might use a tool like Lifecycle to, in fact, I'll go through it with how you would use it with Lifecycle, and even if you're not using Lifecycle, because there's plenty of people on this call that aren't using a system like Lifecycle. So because my screen is obviously landscape, I've split my funnel in half, but in your workbook, you should have a version of this, and it's just one complete downward funnel. So, where's the best place to start with this? One thing that sometimes makes people get confused about content funnels, and I've spent a long time figuring it out myself. If we think about the content that we were talking about for the stage of awareness, let's take, for example, the 3 best restaurants in our town. Remember, that is content that we will put out in order to try to bring people to the stage of awareness. So technically, it's awareness content that we are showing to people not yet at that stage. Okay? When they're at the stage of awareness, what we want to do is we want to start showing them some content a bit further down the funnel to try to pull them down. Okay, so it's important to just remember that when you're creating awareness content, it's to pull people into awareness. When you're creating an interest content, it's to pull people into interest. Okay, so an example, if we look at the top of the funnel here, 0 awareness and interest. What the hell is 0? Okay, so think back to the very beginning when I spoke about the 0 moment of truth. I'm classing 0 as people that have got no idea about you. They're not in any way in your ecosystem. You're not trying to 7-Eleven for them. They have nothing to do with you. So what we're trying to do at the top of the funnel here is we're trying to bring people from the stage of 0 to the stage of awareness or interest. Okay? We're no longer looking at those as 2 separate stages. Remember, we're now looking at a Facebook ad funnel, not the content. We have already covered the content side of things. We're trying to look at the Facebook ad funnel. And the reason that we're grouping that stage together is because at this point in time, if someone goes from Facebook and looks on your website, we don't have their personal details. Okay? We can track them as an anonymous person that came to your website. But what we can't do is know their email address and everything about them. So they came to your website, and let's say they looked at an awareness piece of content, and we were to show them in Facebook, we could now show them an interest piece of content. However, if they clicked on that interest piece of content, we still wouldn't know who they were. So we wouldn't now be able to show them something different next time, because our only tracking at this point in time is the fact that they've been to the website. Don't worry if that's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Just bear with me, just stick with me on this, okay? So to begin with, the way that I would do this on a very basic level, I'm sure Paul Long could, or Ruth or somebody else could set it up for you in a much more sophisticated way than this, but I just want to give you an understanding of it. For the 0 stage, we want to show these people 2 adverts. We're going to set up, if you look here, I've put down the type of audience that I would create in Facebook. No interests, no demographics. There's nothing special about it at all. I've literally done what Paul did at the start and put a pin in my office and said, 4 miles radius, I want everyone. And the 2 adverts that I'm showing them, one advert is something based around awareness. You guys have got a list of what you created for awareness content. And one of the adverts is something around interest. Okay, so we're hitting everyone in the local area with some very light content about either the local area or something very far out in the dormant market around interest. And that's what we're pushing out to people. And if anyone is interested in it, they're going to click to read that article, and they're going to go to our website in order to read it. What the system's then going to do is it's going to say, okay, I don't know this person by name, but if you want, I can show them something in Facebook now. Okay? So what we're then going to do is we're going to create an audience in Facebook for our next advert. That is anyone who's visited our website, or we'll start using some of those demographics that Paul showed us, or they've been on Rightmove, or they've been on Zoopla, or they've done something else that you think puts them in the stage of interest. So now we're starting to say, like, okay, we think these people have got some form of very light interest around what we do because they've been to our website. And what we're going to show them is we're going to show them something in order to try to move them to the stage of consideration. And remember, when we were talking about it before, consideration is all about filling out forms. Okay, so we're now going to say, so what we're doing is we're trying to pull people to the website, and we're going to retarget them with an advert that says, why don't you fill out one of our forms? Obviously, it's not going to say, why don't you fill out one of our forms, but it's going to say, why don't you take an online valuation to find out what your home's worth in 60 seconds? Or why don't you download our ebook on the 4 secrets that people need to know if they're thinking about selling their home in the next 2 years? You know, one of our forms that they need to fill out. We're going to retarget them with that. And by doing that, we're going to convert them over. As they fill out that form, they're going to get sucked into the life cycle system. And the life cycle system is going to automatically push them down to the stage of consideration in the live funnel that I showed you earlier. So now they're at the stage of consideration. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go into Facebook and we're going to set up an advert, and we're actually going to run that advert to everyone at the stage of consideration, because life cycle syncs with Facebook and it says, oh, all of these people are at the stage of consideration. Facebook, go find them for me, please. So where Paul was setting up those ads right at the end there, under saved audiences, there'll be a saved audience called consideration. And they're all the people that have filled out your forms. Anyone that's ever filled out one of your forms is automatically getting sucked into consideration. If someone fills it out at 1 o'clock in the morning, there's no lists for you to upload. There's nothing for you to update. They just automatically get sucked into the audience of consideration and automatically get sucked into the audience in Facebook. So we're going to go and set up an ad to run to those people. And the ad we're going to show them is all the content that we were thinking about that's around the stage of intent. Why you need an estate agent to come around and value your house. All of that kind of stuff. Because we know that they've done an instant valuation. And we're excluding people that have already had a valuation, because Lifecycle knows that stuff too. So Facebook's got all of these great demographics that you can't possibly get your hands on in order to try to bring people to the stage of awareness or interest. people that have gone and looked at Rightmove, people that have gone and looked at Zoopla, people that are interested in buy-to-lets, people that have had a divorce, people that are pregnant, all of that sort of stuff. Right? Facebook is amazing for that. What Facebook's not great at, what you can do if you're a life cycle user, is getting super targeted with the data you've got. So you know who's filled out your forms. You know who's done an online valuation. Facebook doesn't know this stuff. You know who has had a valuation and has instructed another agent. You know who has had a valuation and doesn't like the idea of doing their own viewings. All of that stuff you know. So imagine the top of the funnel, we're using Facebook's demographic audiences to draw people to our brand. We're then retargeting them with some sort of form, ebook, online valuation, something they have to fill out that's going to suck their details into Lifecycle. Lifecycle was tracking them as an anonymous person before, but now it's actually added together the dots and said, oh, that person's called Mark Burgess and this is his email address and he's now filled out this form. It's going to move them to consideration. You've got an ad set up in Facebook Ads Manager that runs the people at the stage of consideration, telling them all the stuff that you wrote in the stage of intent. And they're seeing that content. And then they take action on that content and they go ahead and they book a valuation with you. Inside Lifecycle, you book your valuations and you send out your market appraisal presentations. All very nice. I won't go into it too much. You guys can book in to talk about it if you want to, but you actually send your proposals through the Lifecycle system. So the system knows, okay, this guy's not consideration anymore. He's had a market appraisal, and then move him down to the stage of evaluation. And so now, remember when we spoke about content for evaluation, why you're the best, your Rightmove pie charts, your awards, your all of that stuff, that guy's automatically seeing that stuff now. All the things that you spoke about on the valuation that you tried to reinforce, but you weren't sure if he got it all, he's seeing it in an advert. She's seeing it in an advert. When they next go onto Facebook, they're not seeing an advert saying, why don't you do an instant valuation, thinking, well, I just had you around my house. Why would I want to do that? They're seeing an advert that says, if you're the type of person that is thinking about selling in the next 6 months, here's a testimonial video that we did with, Bill and Joe about what a great experience they had with us and what a bad experience they had with another estate agent and how they wish they'd made the right decision in the first place. Or even something as simple as your pie charts or your awards or whatever it is. Only people at the stage of evaluation are seeing it, and only people that are using a system like Lifecycle can do that. The only other way of doing it, like Paul said, would be for you to do an export of all your valuations into a CSV file and upload it into Facebook. The problem is that as soon as you've uploaded it, it's out of date. So let's say that you did an export of everybody that instructed another agent. You uploaded it into Facebook and you made an audience of people that have instructed another agent, and you ran an ad to them saying, if you have ever instructed an estate agent and it's not really gone according to plan, let me tell you about our relaunch program that we run. And that's great. Some people will see that advert and someone phones you up and says, oh, I want to use your relaunch program. I want to instruct you. Now they're still in your Facebook ad audience because it was just a static CSV file you uploaded. So they're still going to keep seeing that ad, and you're still going to keep spending money showing your ads to the wrong people. Whereas in Lifecycle, it would just now get marked as an instruction. So automatically the audience gets updated. They get taken out of that audience. They get put into another audience. So that's how the two work together. This is a basic example of how you could set up a Facebook ad funnel, regardless of whether you're a Lifecycle user or not. Obviously, one's a lot easier than the other, but I would say that. There's a couple of people on this call that I would highly recommend if you are thinking to yourself, Facebook's awesome, but like the last thing I want to do is jump into that Facebook Ads Manager. Obviously, Paul, you've all listened to him. You know his credibility. He works with hundreds of estate agents. Does a great job. There's a lady called Ruth that's also on this call. Ruth's like my secret weapon. So over the years that I've done this stuff, Ruth actually worked at Iceberg with me, doing all of our stuff for Iceberg. So she knows this shit inside out as well. All of the stuff that I've spoken about today, and all of the ways that Iceberg have used social media in the past. Like Ruth knows all of them secrets, and Ruth does Facebook ads and content and all of that sort of stuff. So she's a good person to talk to as well. So I'm just gonna hold it here for a second. Does anybody want to raise a hand and ask any questions at this point? Is anybody got anything that they've written on their pad whereby they're thinking, I'd like to find out this, or I'm not sure about that, or are we all okay? Is everybody feeling good? I think everyone's okay. I'm not seeing any hands go up. There is Paul Mundy's got a hand up, but I think that was from before when Paul Long was talking. Let me just unmute. Can you hear me, Paul? Yeah, no, I don't think your microphone's working. Okay, so that gives you an idea of how content works, gives you an idea of how Facebook ad funnels works, and it gives you an idea of how Lifecycle sits in the middle of that. The Lifecycle system, I'm not going to turn this into a pitch about Lifecycle. If anybody's interested in it, then we hold strategy sessions around how Lifecycle works. You feel free to join some of those. But the piece that's missing from a state agency, if you think about what we was talking about at the very beginning, in terms of the whole 7-11-4 and how that works and all of that sort of stuff, agents don't have a marketing system. The majority of agents do not have a marketing system. Like Vibra, Repit, Dupix, all of that stuff, it's not a marketing system. That's just what you use to get properties from instruction through to exchange. A marketing system is something that is required in today's day and age. It's just not sustainable to have a business in the 2020s that does not have one. And the reason for that is because of everything we spoke about at the beginning. The 7-11-4, the content, the tracking, the nurturing, all of that stuff. It's not physically possible to stay on top of that without some sort of system. It just isn't. So it's not an optional expense. It's not something where you can say like, oh yeah, we'd love to do that one day. It's just part of business. There are people setting up estate agents all the time, and they're not going into this without a system like that. So the good news is that there are tons of estate agents out there that do not have marketing systems like Lifecycle. And you have an amazing opportunity to get way ahead of them, because right now in lockdown, content consumption is just going through the roof. I mean, look at this webinar. We advertised it 6 days ago, had over 200 people register for it. In normal times, you'd all be like, yeah, can you send me the recording? I'm just a bit busy. So just take that as an example. Our agents they're blowing their funnels apart in terms of like how much content people are consuming. They're pushing it all out through that system. Now, of course, people aren't going ahead and instructing them at the moment, although I am hearing of some, but think of the 7-11-4, the dormant, how many people are they reaching in that dormant market during this period of time? As we come out the other side, whenever that is, and whenever the active market restarts, that you have an incredible opportunity at this point in time to be doing that. If your agents in your area are not using that, then you have to. If there's an agent in your area that is using it, you just need to hurry the hell up, because you will start to get left behind. Dormant markets start moving towards active markets over 2-3 year cycles. So you might not notice any difference to begin with. You'll be like, oh, we're all right. We've got our letters, we've got our leaflets. But there will come a point when that dormant market starts to hit the active market, and your interruption-based marketing just starts falling on deaf ears. Just to finish, I was thinking while we were going through content, I did a workshop a couple of years ago about finding your perfect customers. How do you do that? How do you find the perfect customers for you, and how do you make sure that they have incredible experience? And it came back into my mind when we were talking about the one stage of the funnel, which was intent. Why should someone get you round for the valuation? And I just started thinking, a lot of estate agents talk to me about that's one of the things they struggle with. Like, how do I stand out from the competition? There are 15 estate agents on my high street. I'm not really sure. And that workshop really helped a lot of agents to identify that. So I'm going to start working on putting together that workshop to do online for anybody that's interested. I want to make an offer actually to anybody that's bothered to stay all the way to the end of this. On our website, iceberg-digital.co.uk, you can take a marketing scorecard. There's a link there where you can do it. If any of you want to go on and do that, then our team will get notification and someone will book in for me and you just to have maybe a half-hour chat together where I can actually go through your situation with you, look at what you've got in that marketing scorecard, how that worked out. We can talk about what you found from this workshop and just look at your situation a little bit better, and we can do that on a one-to-one basis. Happy to do that with anybody that's interested in doing that. We run a Facebook group called the Innovative Estate Agent. If any of you are on Facebook, then search for that group and join it. We put lots of stuff in there. I'll put the next workshop in there. Every week we hold strategy sessions about life cycle. Strategy sessions, did I even say that right? About life cycle, which you can join. So anyway, we'll send a follow-up email with all of that information in. If anybody had questions, I mean, I'm gonna open the floor for questions in a sec, so feel free to start putting your hands up if you've got any. But if anybody does have questions that they either don't want to ask here or we don't get around to answering or anything like that, then feel free to, again, add me on Facebook and just message me on there. I'll always respond to you and come back to you with answers to your questions. I think that's it. I think we covered everything. If I just quickly zip back to the start of my slides, where I looked at the 3 different funnels. Here we go. So what I wanted people to get out of today was to understand there isn't a sales funnel. There isn't one sales funnel. There isn't one thing that you can do to make people come to your business. It starts with understanding how a content funnel works. Okay, a content funnel is just about making sure you're always making relevant and useful content for people at all stages of their journey. Okay, the Facebook funnel is about trying to show ads to the right people at the right time to make sure that they move to the next stage of the funnel while you're sleeping. And the life cycle funnel connects the two. What content did people look at? Okay, tell Facebook to go and find them and show them the next piece of content. So you can do this without the life cycle funnel in the middle. You're just a bit blind. That's how most companies do content marketing. You just continue to put out content around those sections. Don't stop. Even if you're thinking to yourself, I'm not going to go and use life cycle, that's fine. But do not stop creating content for all those stages of the funnel and keep putting it out there and just let it do its own magic. For those who use life cycle, you already know how you run that through the system. So I hope that all makes sense. I hope that everybody feels like they got some value out of today. I wanted people to start the day not knowing how content works and how to build their strategy and how to push people through their funnel, and to get to the end of the day where they felt like they had the basis of a content funnel. They understood the basis of how they could use Facebook's power to draw people towards them and how they could use Lifecycle to do the bit in between. And I hope that we accomplished that. I'll make sure that everybody gets sent round an email with a few links to some of that stuff that I was talking about, a link to our website if you want to go and take the strategy, the marketing scorecard, and book in for a bit of time with myself, the Facebook group, and obviously as and when we come up with new workshops, I'll make sure that anyone who was on this one gets notified of that. I think that's it. There's no one's got any hands up, so either you have all gone to sleep or everything was good. yeah, that's the end of the workshop. Thank you very much, guys. It's been a pleasure. Quite enjoyed it, actually. Really enjoyed my frazzles at lunchtime. So don't get overwhelmed. That's my main point. Don't get overwhelmed with Facebook Ad Manager. Don't go away from this thinking, oh my God, I just don't even know where to start. Just calmly look at it and think to yourself, okay, marketing is about content and meeting people on their journey. And that's it. After that, you use tools to make your life easier, and you outsource to people to make your life even easier than that. Thanks very much, guys. Message me on Facebook if you need me. Love you all. Good luck. Stay safe.